Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary. Welcome to the Reactor, my Friday afternoon stream where Phoebe jumped on me just as I was about to start talking. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to whatever this new show is going to be. It is a show on Fridays where we go and browse the internet for interesting content that have come up in this week. Watch some YouTube videos, look at some memes, check out some articles, you know, that kind of stuff. And so we're going to do that. We're going to read together, learn together, laugh together, and of course, everything that I'm going to be looking at and reacting to and everything like that is all stuff that has been sent to me, either stuff that I've seen myself or stuff that has been sent to me by you. So I'm just gonna go through a few things to get started. First of all, if this is your first time here, and it very well may be, my name is Tristan Johnson. I'm the host of the YouTube channel Step Back History. I stream 3 times a week. On Mondays, I stream from 12 to 2, where I stream, which is a show called The Monday Discourse, which I have with Mia Mulder usually. Then on Tuesday nights, I have Step Back Tonight, which is like my late night show. I guess it's not really late night, it's 7 o'clock, but this is all, by the way, Eastern time, so East Coast US time. And now, starting at 2, I have it set to go to 5, but we might alter that depending upon how much content comes in on a weekly basis. But you know, if we don't have enough to fill a full 3 hours, I'm not going to just like keep the stream artificially long, you know. Because, you know, this show is brand new. This is literally the first episode, the first few minutes of the show you're watching right this moment. So, you know, you're part of history now. I go by he, him pronouns, and you can find my other work at stepbackhistory.com. There you can find my YouTube channel. If you're interested, I'm Tristan PG on Twitter, and there's a link tree there that goes to pretty much all the other things that I do that you can find. For all of you cool cats and kittens on Twitch, I just want to mention that, hey, thank you for the water, Christos. I just want to mention to everybody, that if you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free Twitch subscription per month, which helps independent creators, you know, do things like pay bills and feed cats. And so if you have Amazon Prime and you haven't used your free subscription yet, consider Step Back History. Consider feeding this animal or paying rent on this little office. All those things. Obviously, this is my job. This is how I live. So anything that you can do will help significantly. So I thank everybody who has already become who's already subscribed on Twitch, and I will, you know, I'll be thanking everybody who does as soon as they come up. And what else can I say except thank you? Yeah, that I'll be looking out for super chats. I have like a little window open to see if I can make sure that I can see super chats for things. So, oh yes. Here, let's just put you down for a second. So to kind of continue the discussion, or to kind of continue, if you have content for me to react to look at, you can either put it on the Discord server. There is a channel called the Reactor, or you can post it in the Twitter hashtag StepBackReact. Those are the places where we'll be getting stuff. We'll be putting stuff together. So that's all the things there. Let's take a look at the chat. What's going on, chat? Hello, beep. DJ Meklo, thank you for following. Tristan Nuclear Stream. Are you on YouTube too this time? Yes, I am. Obviously, you're watching on YouTube. There's some cat emojis. If you must love the the box theme park, yeah. I haven't. I have been slow on the unpacking my office stuff, mostly because I have a lot of stuff that I need to put on the wall, and also I have a lot of stuff that is in my office that are very heavy boxes full of books that need to go on a bookshelf in the living room, and I'm lazy. But yeah. I need to find a good way to put stuff up on the wall, because right now, as you can see, things are looking kind of bare, and I could definitely use some more decoration to accent the streaming set. How are the cats settling in? Cats are doing great. They've, they had a bit of a cats are weird when you move. As soon as you move house, they act as if they've never heard of anybody before. Phoebe took this place pretty easily. She got to explore around first, and there's a lot of places where she can get that is high up, which is what she likes. So within a day or two, she was pretty normal. She was hissing at Romeo a lot, but they'd never gotten any fights. Romeo was, and probably still is, having a little bit of an anxiety problem. He's spent most of his life living in that 600 square foot apartment, and now that we're in like a much bigger place, he feels lonely. He does that kind of meowing that cats do when they're looking for somebody because they're alone and they don't know what's going on. Because sometimes when I'm in here and Phoebe is here and she's kind of territorial, and if Kelly is in a meeting or something and she's got her door closed, Romeo can be a little lonely, but he's doing better too. He was they're starting to learn how to live in each other's spaces a little bit. So sometimes Romeo actually does come here. I have a table a little bit to my left here that has it's a folding table that has our router and our modem on it, but also has a cat bed on the table. And also there's another cat bed under the table. And I did this because I know that Phoebe likes heights. She likes she's starting to like crawling on top of the refrigerator and stuff like that. So I know that she would take the upper one. And very often I've seen where Phoebe is on the top one and Romeo's on the lower one. And they just kind of both chill in this room. And now Romeo comes and hangs out with me too. So it's turning into a thing. Oh boy, there's already 37 of you here? That's so cool. Thank you. Thank you guys for being so supportive. The last time I did a show, it was a Thursday afternoon video game stream, and it did not do very well, and I had to cancel it. But this looks already very promising. So I've got a list of things that have been sent via the Step Back Discord server, plus a few things that I have come across. And we're going to go through those, I guess, first. And then I'll go and check back on the Discord and back on the stream, or back on the check on Twitter to see if everything's all right. Because yeah, Step Back React. Nothing's been put on there yet. Step Back React. Hashtag Step Back React. It should be in the title of the stream if you wanted to post something on it. And if you hear something weird, Phoebe is playing with a toy right now. That's the thing, is in the bigger place, the cat toys are much less likely to end up under couches, so they actually play with their toys a bit more. And I have a little laser pointer here, too, if they ever want to... Oh, yeah, there we go. There's Phoebe's... Maybe I should put the camera over to show this, because this is kind of a fun thing to a fun activity for the whole stream. If I can get, as you can see, still lots of boxes. I'll move the water bottle. But you ready? There we go. That's prime content right there. Everyone loves cat content. Cats don't like too much of that because actually, like, the fact that they can't like grab onto it and attack it means they actually find it a little frustrating. But it's fun for a little bit just to get their heart running. Yeah, because she's like 10 years old too. So it's like she forgets her age with the red dot of doom. It seems. Yeah, because she's like a 10-year-old cat. She almost falcon headbutted that box. Yeah, she's intense. She's an old lady, and I guess like 10 isn't actually that old for a cat. She's like a middle-aged cat. But, you know, still that age of a cat's life when they spend more time just sort of sleeping, for the most part. And so sometimes she still works up energy. And lasers are usually involved. So we'll just test out the hashtag. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so it works. Cool, cool, cool. Alrighty. Let's look at some content, shall we? Let's go absorb content together. So let's look at the first thing on the list. Ah, yes. This is something I came across and I wanted to show everybody. So I'm going to have to turn off the music for this. Alright. So. Alright. So it's a TikTok. Luckily, TikTok's on browser now, so you can actually do this. This is one of my all-time favorite TikToks now. Hopefully you guys can see it. It might be a bit too small, but I'll need to like I'll have to remind myself. I'm gonna write it down somewhere to make different things for different make scenes for different sites, or at least for common ones like TikTok here. All right. Just gotta get the chat back. Get my goddamn chat back. Phoebe is already in a post-scarcity mindset. How's the move going a week on? It's going great. It's been a pretty nice place so far. It's been very hot, but just like, you know, don't really need to go outside all that much. I went to a bar for the first time because London's opened up a little bit because London has like no COVID cases. So I went to a bar last night, and the bar had you can only go outside. The only time that you can go inside is to go to the bathroom, and they have like they maneuvered all of the tables, so it was like in this like winding path that goes straight to the bathroom, and then another winding path that goes straight out, and you're supposed to sanitize your hands on the way out. So that happened. But yeah, you're on the patio, and you have to check in. You have to register because they only have so many tables they're allowed to use, and yeah, all the staff wear masks. It was kind of fun. But we were able to drink beer, which, you know, that's at the end of the day what it's all about. Why so many dislikes? I don't know. I don't know what the problem is. So, definitely wasn't a salad bar you went to. Ha ha. Fuck off. TikTok is blocked in some countries that are supporting a China border aggression. Oh dear. I did get your tweet, yes. Okay, China's been overplaying their hand with Hong Kong. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Hey, Phoebe's back. Let's get some of you guys banned. Goodbye. Okay. Oh, Kelly's here. Excellent. Okay, so I don't know how good the text is here, but basically there's a division in the middle of the TikTok here. One side says countries Britain hasn't invaded, and countries Britain has invaded. So this is by Iman Delivery. I don't know. It's an Irish name. I'll fuck it up. But she's got a great TikTok that's just like Irish history memes, which I think is great. Okay. Good, Phoebe. Let's watch.
United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic, Dominican, Cuba, Caribbean, Greenland, El Salvador, too, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras, Guyana, and still Guatemala, Bolivia, then Argentina, and Ecuador, Chile, Brazil, Costa Rica, Belize, Nicaragua, Bermuda, Bahamas, Tobago, San Juan, Paraguay, Uruguay, Suriname, and French Guiana, Barbados, and Guam. Norway and Sweden and Iceland and Finland and Germany now one piece. Switzerland, Austria, Czechoslovakia, Italy, Turkey and Greece. Poland, Romania, Scotland, Albania, Ireland, Russia, Oman. Bulgaria, Saudi Arabia, Hungary, Cyprus, Iraq and Iran. There's Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, both Yemen, Kuwait and Bahrain. The Netherlands, Luxembourg, Belgium and Portugal, France, England, Denmark and Spain. India.
Make it bigger? Let me see if I can make it bigger. Should be able to. Okay. Meanwhile, you can just watch the cat attack me. You don't even need that. You just have that. Good old TikTok. Freaking vertical thing. All right. How's this? There you go. It's a bit of a TikTok thing. There we go. All right, let's start it over then. Come on.
Pakistan, Burma, Afghanistan, Thailand, Nepal, and Bhutan, Cambodia, Malaysia, then Bangladesh, Asia, and China, Korea, Japan, Mongolia, Laos, and Tibet, Indonesia, the Philippine Islands, Taiwan. United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic, Dominican, Cuba, Caribbean, Greenland, El Salvador, too, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras, Guyana, and still Guatemala, Bolivia, then Argentina, and Ecuador, Chile, Brazil, Costa Rica, Belize, Nicaragua, Bermuda, Bahamas, Tobago, San Juan, Paraguay, Uruguay, Suriname, and French Guiana, Barbados, and Guam. Norway and Sweden and Iceland and Finland and Germany now one piece. Switzerland, Austria, Czechoslovakia, Italy, Turkey and Greece. Poland, Romania, Scotland, Albania, Ireland, Russia, Oman. Bulgaria, Saudi Arabia, Hungary, Cyprus, Iraq and Iran. There's Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, both Yemen, Kuwait and Bahrain. The Netherlands, Luxembourg, Belgium and Portugal, France, England, Denmark and Spain. India, Pakistan, Burma, Afghanistan, Thailand, Nepal, and Bhutan, Cambodia, Malaysia, then Bangladesh, Asia, and China, Korea, Japan, Mongolia, Laos, and Tibet, Indonesia, the Philippine Islands, Taiwan. United States, Canada, Mexico, right. Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic, Dominican, Cuba, Caribbean, Greenland.
So that's plenty for that. So I love that. I love that video a lot. I probably should have been reacting more, but I think this came out because there was like. All right, I'll admit one thing about it, which is that it is a very liberal interpretation of invasion. Luxembourg isn't a country. It kind of is a country, isn't it? Isn't it, what's it called? Isn't it, independent? Yeah, it's from Animaniacs. Yeah, it's from a show from the 90s. Probably, like, one of the better cartoon shows that came out in the 90s. Hey, Birdie's here. You should go buy Birdie Blake drawings. They draw drawings. I have it. I unpacked just the other day. I bought a print off of Birdie once. It's in that, you see that envelope that's right there? There's a Birdie drawing in there. But they do commission illustrations and stuff like that for like people's D&D groups and for some reason. Oh yeah, there's this too. Yeah, I forgot. They're doing fire alarm testing. Hopefully it'll go away in a second. I'll play you guys some music while we wait. Okay. It looks like it is over. Thank the Lord. That was just not a pleasant experience. Okay. Let's take a look at another. What do we got here? We got a picture. Oh yeah, this is fun. This is a fun one. Okay. Somebody posted this in the Discord server of someone put this in the Step Back Discord server. Let me just get it nice and good looking for you. Oh boy. Okay. It's very big and it's going to have a lot of text, which means you won't be able to see it super well, but I will read it to you guys because I wanted to read this whole thing. So, welcome to Europe. This is a fictional thing that is basically a look at how would people talk about Europe if Europe had been colonized and was recently decolonized, and sort of how people would conceive of European culture. And I took a quick look at it. I didn't get too deep into it. By the way, Spike Engineer, thank you for following. Because I didn't want to go too in depth because this is a reaction thing. But so there's a thing with that. Can we get the smoke alarm back? Oh boy. Gosh. What's going on? It's all the French's fault. Okay. How are 17 people unironically watching this? Wow, Dwami, you sound like a really nice person. Can we go to the thing? I'm gonna go kick you out. Thanks for being such a nice and understanding person. Alright, whatever. Hey, okay. So, yeah, let's read it aloud. So, National Geographical Service of Albion. Europe, a new perspective. 50 years after the end of colonization, or at the end of colonialism in Europe, old ideas are being re-examined. For 5 centuries, writers have told us about a land of primitivity and despair, but today, we are starting to appreciate the positive aspects of European civilization. Take a cue from the Ode to Radiance, which alone of old classics has anything good to say about Dark Tula. Scholars are revisiting Marvelous Surf. The remarkable acts and ideas of Europeans have created without the Radiant One's guidance, and so, on so many other themes, the evidence of time has borne the wisdom of the ancient bard's insight. kick me out. There we go. Good stuff. Good stuff. I haven't had this many Chrome bombs, but there we go. All right, so let's learn about the ways of Oirup. In Albion and throughout the Radiant Isles, our knowledge of all things comes from the Radiant One because he is all-knowing. But Oirup lacks an equivalent source of truth. Due to its unique geography, Oirup's civilization has been unable to base itself on the infallible wisdom of an omnipotent being. Radiant scholars who study Oirup, Tulicists, therefore seek to understand what Oirup has built on instead. Oirupes believe that all ideas must come from the observation of real things. The foundation of their society, hereditary property rights, derives from the observation of childbirth and the inheritance, or in the inferences that children are the same person as their parents. Traditional Tulic rationalism, the formal deductive tradition of the Oirupes, have passed down for millennia that produced many admirable Oirupes ideas, such as the explanation of gravity based on mathematical calculations. Tulicists used to focus on the errors and limitations of the Oirupes mindset imposes. They spilled much ink about artists who idealize realism and abhor abstraction, inhibiting their creativity, and about thinkers who make arbitrary conjectures positing the sun moves around the earth or that bile determines health. They dwelt on the despair Oirupes feel from being disconnected from the Radiant One and described the rationalism as a self-soothing instinct. So, like, the idea is, the whole idea is, like, the way that we write about other cultures comes from, like, another culture's ideals. Oh, no, not again. All right, let's put the music back on. Okay, it looks like they've decided to stop doing it again. This is great. I love what this is doing to the stream that I do. Great first episode. We're doing really great. All right. I like how it says 50 years after colonialism, but over on the right is a picture of Portugal. Okay. So yeah, the whole idea of this is that they're making, like, they're talking about different aspects of European culture as, like, them being, like, lacking, like, very gross generalizations, taking, like, ancient things. Okay, so a few things I already love so far. One, the idea that that they describe European ways as believing that Europeans literally think that children are their parents, are like the physical manifestation of their parents, as a way of, like, explaining inherited, like, what's it called? Inheritance. And I always find that, and also their dedication to what's it called? That their paintings are dedicated to realism, showing that they lack creativity and imagination, which is, like, exactly the way that, like, colonizers would. First of all, there's like a misinterpretation of social custom, reinterpreted to show them as inferior with the whole inheritance thing. But then also they've got this this thing about like their this thing about art, which like very often, like when art happened in the past. So like when people would meet other cultures and talk about their art, they would often say like, oh, like all their stuff is just like abstract and like it's not realist, which like it's like a lot of things. Because I'm like I'm watching this or I'm reading this book, Stand from the Beginning, and even talking about people studying race and like how everything is done through the lens of the default of the way that they do it being the best and being the good way to do it. And I always thought that was so. It's a great way to look at it. All right, let's go back. So, radiance and atheism. Many post-colonial European governments remain obedient to the Radiant One, most eminent of the eminent isle. Most eminent of the eminent isle. He who instructs the world. Furthermore and more albino colonies respect the counsel of she who writes addenda, condescent to Albion and receptive. I hope that I don't know what all this stuff is about. I imagine it's just like a fictitious culture that like took over Europe or whatever. Nonetheless, most Europeans continue to follow traditional aesthetic metaphysical systems which disregard radiance. These systems are distinguished by a belief in supernatural beings who exist outside of time and space, called Deus, which is like kind of like I imagine it's like Dieu or like Deus, which is like the Latin word for God. So it's referring to their God as supernatural beings who exist outside of time and space. So yeah, already trying to a misinterpretation, oversimplification of their culture. This is why I like this stuff so much. Hey, Cheerful Entropy, thank you for following. Welcome to your king. Yeah, so like again, this is like them trying to, first of all, generalize and misinterpret their religion in a way that like, is this a real society? I'm not exactly sure what you're talking. This is, so what we're looking at, if anybody is just tuning in, this is a, this is a description of a post-colonial Europe after Europe's been colonized, and showing through it how like how we have a colonial mindset that that disregards and oversimplifies and compares or downwardly compares other cultures based on how they compare to the way that they do it. And so far it's been very clever. I do not know who they've been colonized by. It seems, I'm not exactly sure what they're referring to. In ancient times, these Europes believed in multiple deus, but today they are only found in the Arctic regions. Single deu atheism is now the norm. There are 3 traditions in a single deu aesthetic belief: Jizyanism, Aloism, and Zhuism. I'm not exactly sure what. Each of the single deu religions holds as is this I don't know, it's like Christianity and Islam or something? I don't know. Each of the single deu religions hold as their most important belief the tenet that there is only one deu. However, the Jizyans, which are the largest and most powerful group, believe that there are 2 deus, Sinoi and Jizu, which come together as one, and they have long. This is Is Jizu Jesus? I love that. If it is, yes, it is. It says up here, which count as one, and have these long persecuted the other traditions for declining to agree. The Aloists and the Zhuists, on their part, reject all the other traditions because they believe that different deus are the only one. Hello, Phoebes. Everyone loves you. You know that? You're the real reason why people. I got a curious cat the other day that was like, "Do you realize that like how long is it before you just realize the jig is up and that people just want Phoebe to be the host of the show, not me?" And I was like, "I already know this. This is already a fact." Phoebe, okay. The problem is that nothing here would last if Phoebe was in charge, because she just chews on the cables. Like she's trying to... The reason that she's on me like this in such a cute fashion is because she's trying to chew on my headphone cables. Don't do that. But yeah, the whole like misreading of Jesus and stuff totally fills. All right, and everything is what's it called? Everything is misremembered and intentionally mispronounced and stuff, which I think is great. It's a perfect example of like this explains so much of like colonialist narratives. I like it a lot. All right. The radial powers first took control of Europe in order to stop adherents to different traditions from fighting atheistic wars. Sometimes the Oropese traditions even fought internally. Two Jizyanist factions, the Papals and the Huguenots. This is probably referring to Catholics and Huguenots, which were like French Protestants, which I'm guessing is just a word they use for Protestants now. What are we looking at here? This is a document about a... this is sort of like a post-colonial writing describing European culture that is supposed to show how, like, you know, how how our colonized mind approach and write about other cultures. It's pretty cool. I really wanted to talk about it as a lot. Papals and Huguenots. Many had conflicts over whether or not they accept a metaphysician called the Pap as the leader. There is another atheistic tradition known as pseudo-albinism, which consists of the belief that she who writes addenda is a Jew. I think that's... I'm trying to remember who... I don't know who she writes addenda would be. The adherents are the descendants of irregular albino settlers in the Far East, coming out of centuries of exposure to indigenous thought. It persists despite the many corrective memos she has sent to clarify the advisory council she plays in albino society. It has posed many challenges to the well-being of Europe. All right. Perhaps the Queen of England, maybe. Contrary to... Whoa, okay, we can get a lot closer. And there's this here. Contrary to his depiction in the beloved Albanese classic, Jesus' Jolly Day, Jesus' Crown of Thorns, does not have roses. Jesus believed that we should love everybody. Believes we should love everybody. Oh, man. So contrary to his depiction in the beloved Albanese classic, Jesus' Jolly Day, which is like the talking about the crucifixion of Christ, maybe? Which is like... showing like the butchering of cultural stories and traditions. That's fucking awesome. The Crown of Thorns does not have roses. We believe that we should, and yeah, like another intentional misinterpretation. There's so many little things in this. It's fucking awesome. What happened to the Greeks in this timeline? I don't know. I'm not really looking at it as an alternate history. I don't really give a shit about the alternate history aspect. I'm more interested in just like the way that they're writing about Europe, because it does show like a lot about the way that we write about non-European cultures in a very good way. Unlike the Radiant Isles, where each power speaks with its own unique language, most Oropese share a common language with a similar grammar and vocabulary. However, the local vernaculars vary so much that often two neighboring villages cannot understand each other, which is basically saying they speak other languages. And that also is a oversimplification that happens when we talk about languages and stuff like that. However, the local... oh yeah, we already read that sentence. Phoebe, don't sit on the keyboard. That happens to anime somewhat, treating Christian religion as a source of fantasy stories. Would make sense. For this reason, Oropese use different dialects to speak with friends, family, and strangers, or when writing letters. Few dialects are both written and oral. Most Oropese terms used in Albanese were borrowed from the Vawa literary dialect, reflecting the profound cultural interaction between Albion and the ancient Vawa court. Oropese words have been transcribed into Albanese more inconsistently. For this reason, scholars today use the modern RA concise system, which accurately represents Oropese language. In this map, we prefer RA concise, but use the traditional conventions or well-known terms. So it's like a thing about alphabets, I guess, and stuff like that. Yeah, like the Khoisan languages. Yeah, exactly. It is an alternate history, yes, but I think that that's not exactly the point of why this was made. If that makes sense. The student of Oripes faces daunting challenges from the writing system, although the alphabet is ostensibly uniform. So there you go, Oripes, the alphabet. I like that. So students of Oripes face daunting challenges from its writing system. Although the alphabet is ostensibly uniform, the true sound of a character changes from context to context, and entirely new sounds may be indicated by hundreds of character combinations. Furthermore, each written dialect uses its own conventions. For example, while this sound is written like this in Valadis, is Oripes, it's all like fros. That's the traditional word for it. Fronsa. And then Oripes is France. Or England, or that's Caesar Augustus. Which is properly Caesar Ugus. Stuff that's meant to illustrate real events, but in a fictional context like this is interesting to me. Yeah, I think so. That's the thing I find interesting about this too. I like this discussion on language because this is like also, I think this... Oh, no, not again.
This is a fire alarm system test.
I know.
Speakers will be tested. The elevators will be temporarily out of service.
Oh, no.
It is only a test.
Oh, God. All right, let's see if this continues. And then we have to go back to having a dance party. Fire dance party. Okay, economy. The Oripes economy has faced serious problems throughout its history. The radial power's sole interest in early years was in trading luxury goods in exchange for Oripes resources. But the powers were frustrated that they could not benefit from the continent's full potential because the natives used primitive methods and did not exploit the most valuable materials. Therefore, let's get up here. Therefore, they need to introduce economic reforms to benefit both cultures. The case of ore is the most well-known. Oripes traditionally based wealth on possessing large quantities of this metal, but it was useless. During the long transition from radial hegemony, the powers eventually devalued ore in favor of radiant units of account. Oripes resisted this, however, and colonial governments long feared the threat of oral violence. So what they're referring to as ore, probably like if you guys don't know like French/Latin stuff, ore is gold. So they're talking about how these people are primitive because they took like a useless metal and they made it the basis of their entire economy. And because they were so economically backwards, this fictional like colonizing society had to introduce all sorts a different economy to them because they were just so using resources so inefficiently. Oh, here we go again. Oh. This makes me very happy that this is happening. I love this. This is probably great entertainment for everybody, too. Yeah, oral violence, I think that also is funny. Gold is not useless. No, it doesn't tarnish. It doesn't... it's good electroconductivity. Oh, time for another fire party. I swear this will end at some point. Don't worry. That's the hope. I don't know why it's taking so long to do this, but this is great. I love everything about having all this sound having. Okay, let's move on. Upon the Radiant One's instructions, the Powers introduced the most far-reaching economic reforms during the last century of the colonial period. In order to attain high levels of output, they restructured the continent's economy according to a coercive, centralized model, which we acknowledged was violent. Although this project bore some fruit, it mostly failed. Europe's economic inefficiencies have persisted into the post-colonial period, and the continent remains dependent on Radiant expertise. So yeah, this is like talking about how they fucked up the colonial economy, just like we did for many Sub-Saharan Africa videos, Sub-Saharan Africa stuff, and ended up doing this. When are you going to move on to videos? I have them in an order. Don't worry. I'll get to things. Don't quiet you. Despite receiving apology from modern Radiant leaders, many Europes today resent the powers of the coercive policies. The powers for coercive policies in the colonial era. This resentment has become articulated as bad faith theory. This theory holds that Radiant colonialism was an oppressive system which exploited Europe for the sole economic benefit of the powers and intentionally harmed Europes. Many post-colonial states adhere to this theory. So like, it's like a weird out there theory that this violent oppression is what fucked them up. There's a free noise canceling program that actually makes it so we can't hear the beeping. Only voice. It feels like magic. I don't know if I have that, but I can look into it. But hopefully, we won't have to deal with that again. Hopefully, we're done. Political organization. The traditional Europese model of legitimate authority comes in their customs regarding property. In Europe, property is transferred from one person to another according to genetic relationships. Ownership titles pass between relatives who are linked by sexual collaborations, which have been certified as lawful by a metaphysician, which is like their term for like clergy. This is called inheritance. As Europes believe that the chief administrator of a government is owned by the state, leadership titles are exchanged according to this custom. Talking about feudalism. So let's take a look at this. This is like a little map they have here. So Albion, Lusitania, Gallia, Batavia, the Turks. By the middle of the colonial era, Europe had become a game board for the powers' sublimated rivalries. There you go. What is this? The voyage of Colomb to Gallia, which could have brought Europe and Radiance into contact. All right, let's see what that is. The system of government is called familial hierarchy. It's now your term, metaphysician. Pretty good term. Alrighty. Barbary, pirates, enslaved my people. Ooh, dear. A traditional family hierarchical state is known as Rewayam. The leader is called the Rewa. Rewayams are themselves organized as a collection of sub-Rewayams. The Rewas govern their land by shrewdly managing their personal relationships with other people, especially by establishing certified sexual collaborations with them. Due to the complex rules which assign titles to different people, a single person often becomes a Rewa of multiple Rewayams, holding both chief and subordinate titles over many different peoples. Most traditional wars were triggered by disputes regarding title ownership. The name of the regions are all the wrong places. Batavia in Spain instead of Belgium, yeah. Tulicists agree that familial hierarchy was the greatest source of conflict save for atheistic metaphysics, contrary to traditional Europese belief. Hello, facts don't care for feelings. Interesting name. I'll be watching you closely. None of the post-colonial states have been Rayams. When the radio powers first decided to transfer Orope's sovereignty to indigenous stakeholders, they established new commonwealths in communion with the Radiant One. In the decades since, however, many Orope's governments have dissolved their link with the Radiants and embarked upon a radically sovereign path. Although the plurality remain commonwealths, a majority of the Orope states are now coercive or consensual meritocratic oligarchies. These are states ruled by a special class of people who meet the government standards of merit, which may be based on different ideals of morality, brutality, or ethnicity, and usually incorporate some kind of administrative theory. Many of the leaders themselves state that they have used their power to enrich themselves and enrich their class privilege, resurfacing a persistent challenge to the Orope's political organization. So, that's a thing. Sorry, this is getting really long. Gotta go soon. Jeez. Everyone's getting grumpy. Tulsis divide Orope's history into 5 distinct eras: pre-Columbian, mercantilate, clientelate, equilate, and post-colonial. Oh boy. Looks like this period produced many beautiful and meaningful things. In pre-Columbian times, the people of Europe lived much as they do today. They lived in thatch houses, wore simple clothes, and used wooden tools. The elites, however, lived lives of luxury and competed with the richest goods. It was this competition which spurred Cristopher Colombo to sail west in search of antipodal countries, where he hoped to buy spices. Instead, he landed on Gallia and thereby ushered in a new era for Europe and the Radiant Isles. The mercantilate. This period was marked by growing influence of the Radiants in Europe. At first, the radio powers sought only trade in exchange for valuable resources. The powers sold Orope's elites luxury goods from the global Radiant trade network. Cultural and political connections soon followed. The scholars and emissaries traveled throughout the continent, and for 50 brilliant years, Albion was friends with the Uvalde. This is like sort of the story of early colonization here. But as the relationship developed, powers became drawn to Orope's conflicts, namely the atheistic and competitive wars which threatened trade flows. So this is them fucking with like the local politics in order to keep goods going into their things. So that's the thing. Is this an anti-atheism channel? Why would I say that? You do realize that AOC is not in touch with reality? What? Oh God. You are... Ben Shapiro, why are you in our chat? Didn't your mom say that you have to take a nap at 2:30 every day? Or else you get grumpy? This period is distinguished by de facto rate. So the clientelate, 150 years after the voyage of Cologne with the extinction of the Valerium, the powers of themselves are dominant in Europe, but soon they found themselves dominated by Orope's norms. Because the powers were controlling Orope's affairs by operating within traditional Orope's structures, this is like talking about kind of early colonization too, about when they took over and they sell their houses to who, Ben? Fucking Aquaman? The Equitate. Following the terrible proxy wars between the powers, the Radiant One stepped in to overhaul the colonial project. Trade was no longer to be the only objective. Instead, the powers would work together for the benefit of all. In a series of equitable proclamations, he instituted a comprehensive administrative colonial framework with uniform economic, civil, and judicial policies. So the thing is, like, the reason why they talked about, like, the all-Radiant One that we listen to and all the time, it's like them talking about God, but, like, how Christians who were colonizing people of different religions were like, you have this primitive, strange religion that makes no sense, unlike our religion, which is perfect and good. That's sort of like what they're going for, which is also fucking mint, man. Chat's just like talking all to AOC. Oh boy. Okay. Well, to restore equity between the powers, the reorganized vital territories and assign colonies to Teutonia and Vitiliu, which had not been seen active in Europe. RP Society, the Radiant One created a process through which the powers may receive a mandate to administer natively sovereign lands. Although some indigenous Orapis resisted this new world order, for nearly 170 years it worked and there was peace. Oh boy. The Pseudo-Albino War, the radial hegemony, and Europe was ended by a terrible war. When the powers established colonies in the Far Eastern regions, they discovered the pseudo-Albinices, who strongly resented the Radiant rule decades later. If I don't watch your videos before I sleep, I get nightmares. Oh dear. That's weird, because I would think that my videos would give people nightmares, not stop them from having nightmares. The first Caesar Ugus of Rome, depicted on a recent find from the albino horde. Caesar Ugus is the title Romis used for Rawa, and was named for is a Vawa variant for Ugus. Okay. Otto, the current Caesar Ugus of the Rome as a child, he has lived to a very great age. Note the similarity between his clothing and Louis Orepi's dress has changed little over the past centuries. Oh boy. This map is racist. That's the point. This is also the worst D&D campaign map ever. It's, man, people are not getting this, are they? Requires certification for every sexual collaboration. Yeah. Some myths about Europe. Orapis require certification for every sexual collaboration they participate in. This is exaggerated. Homosexual collaborations do not need to be certified, and heterosexual certification is valid for all future events of sex, so long as they're carried out by the same two collaborators. Orapis only eat plants. This myth comes from an old name for Orapis people, cruditos, which means eaters of raw vegetables. This term is now considered offensive. In reality, Orapis enjoy a variety of delicacies, including snails, offal, and coagulated animal secretions. It's a little complicated for a lot of people. Aww. Can you make a video about Pizzagate? I really don't want to. But I'll probably have to bring it up if I ever talk about conspiracy theories again. So, okay, so people coming in. This is sort of like a attempt to write about Europe in a way that, like, a lot of people write about post-colonial states today, is the idea. Orapis think that mice are baby cats. This is one of many bizarre stories about Orapis' beliefs which spread to the colonial period. While some are real, such as the belief that bleeding cures disease, most are made up. In reality, Orapis are familiar with feline biology. The hostility shared by cats and mice plays a major role in their culture. Why am I rocking? Am I okay? Yeah, I'm fine. I was just, what's it called? Trying to get my legs in a comfy position. So there's this Ongoland. Gao. Okay. So this is the map, which is, I'm sure, what everybody wanted to see. Pseudo-Albion, Arcticula. I like that they made this country called Rome, and it's a fucking square in the middle of the continent. That is fucking rich. I love that shit so much. This is, like, exactly the kind of stuff. Byzantine Turkey, like it. I like the Tago, which is just like this like country that makes no sense. Hispania. Oh my god, this is perfect. And yeah, there's another like line here in North Africa. It's the Tagus River. Yeah, they just made a country out of the Tagus River, which here's another straight line here. North Fros, which is just like North France, which is which is like none of it is actually in France. Whoa. Gosh. Radiance and atheism in Europe, so this is the religions thing. So many countries that just have like straight borders. I think it's great. It's such, like there's so many little great things about this map. That they left out Norway. Sorry. Some people are just like popping in without knowing what the context of this thing is. Like talking that what's it called? Is this supposed to be like it's supposed to be a critique, a sort of parody of the way that Europeans talk about colonized countries and the way that they treat colonized regions. That's basically it. Hope that makes sense. Yeah, it's like a mockumentary. Very clever, very well done, like very polished. The graphics are really good. I think it's really, I don't know, I like it a lot. It's a map that shows European history the same way that First Nations, yeah, there you go. Yeah, so I think it's really clever. I think this is cool. I'm trying to remember who shared that in the Discord. It was Enraged Avian, I think, yeah. All right, okay, let's move on to the next item, because, yeah, we're an hour in, and the fire alarm / this thing having a lot of text sort of took up a lot of time. So let's watch it looks like we're going to be watching a YouTube video. Let me just get that loaded up.
Forget.
And we will, let me just see if I can play around with some things to make it a little bit better. Okay. Let's do this. Just gonna make the thing a little bit better so that everything looks good. I don't want to have to do this multiple times, so gotta make a YouTube thing. Probably should have done this before the stream, but you guys all know Tristan's not that smart at these things. So there we go. Good night. Good, better resize. So let's see what this video is about. This is something that someone recommended. It's titled "Skipping Breakfast is Bad. New Study Results." So let's see what the hell this is about.
That I exist. Forget that I ever breathed the words intermittent fasting. Forget that you ever learned anything about fasting or ketosis. And I want you to go back 5, 6, 7 years and think about what you defined skipping breakfast as, okay? Was skipping breakfast to you 5 or 6 years ago, like just maybe grabbing a handful of cereal on your way out the door and not sitting down for a formal breakfast? Very likely the case, okay? So I want to talk about a very important study that just came out and reached a lot of news headlines and freaked out a lot of people, and quite frankly, really upset me. It was published in the Journal of American College of Cardiology, and it ultimately found that those that skip breakfast have an 87% higher risk of dying from some form of cardiovascular disease. Okay, that's a pretty large leap. And let me explain why this study makes 0 sense and why it's completely debunked. You are tuned into the internet's leading performance, nutrition, and fat loss channel with new videos.
Oh boy, I don't even know why this is recommended.
Please hit that
I don't know what I'm
subscribe
going to be able to say
button.
to
And
this.
also, please hit that little bell icon so you can turn on
Plus, I have
notifications to
no.
know whenever I go live.
I should probably just pause and say that, like, one of the things that I should say here is that I can't make any claims about the, like, science that is being talked about here. So let's just, like, clear out of the way. Do not take this as, like, bona fide medical advice with my endorsement, because I have no fucking clue. Just so we know. Let's see what I can commentate on, but I'm not super well versed on this, but luckily it's kind of short, so.
It's a new video. I also want you to check out ButcherBox.
Short for a YouTube video anyway.
After you watch this video. See, ButcherBox has grass-fed, grass-finished.
Skip the ad here.
Higher quality than the grocery. The big thing, we find that they link, but for now, let's get to some skipping breakfast science. So when we take a deeper dive into this study, we find some major flaws. The big thing, we find that they linked skipping breakfast based off of just a recorded interview. Okay, so this study was a cohort study, so it looked at multiple years. Okay, it looked at lots of participants, over 6,500 adults.
This is just
over the course
CrossFit
of many
propaganda?
years. And it just kind of tracked their lifestyle.
Why would you want
Tracked
meat in the meal? It sounds
when
like
they
it can go
died,
wrong
when
so
they
easily,
developed
yeah.
illness, et cetera, et
I
cetera.
mean,
but based on one
there's those
interview,
meal plan
they
boxes where they
determined
send
that a
like
certain
basically like
percentage
cardboard
either skipped
coolers.
breakfast
That was
or
work.
sometimes ate breakfast, et cetera, et cetera. For example, they found that 5.1% of the participants never ate breakfast. They found that 10.9% of the participants rarely ate breakfast. 25% of the participants sometimes ate breakfast, and 59% of the participants always ate breakfast. Okay, so we're basing that on what
Is
they
there
say.
CrossFit in Africa? I have
So
no
first of
idea.
all, you have to look at the general populace for a second.
What's my opinion
I
on
know
breakfast? My opinion on breakfast is that I don't eat it usually. At our home, we don't anyway. We what's it called? We usually have an early lunch at like 12 o'clock instead.
Many people that would say that they skip breakfast simply because they don't sit down and have a super formal meal. So that is not a fair assessment at all. Okay, it's also about how we frame it, right? Let me throw some psychology at you for a second. If I were to say to you, hey, Bob, do you skip breakfast? Okay, the word skip in its very nature puts you on the defense. It implies
This man's a
that
flaming hot
skipping
Dorito
something
come to life.
that you shouldn't be skipping, right?
Oh, man.
So if I say, Bob, you're skipping breakfast, you're just going to assume and be put on the defense. So you're much more likely to give sort of a false or some kind of inflated or deflated response. Now, if I use some different
Triangle is
terminology,
researching the
perhaps, or
word
even
full
tone of
time
voice,
for him,
right?
but I'm sure I'm not
Bob,
giving up your stance
do you
because he's
abstain from
only a
breakfast?
successful personal
I mean,
trainer and
that
entertainer.
sort of
offering
sounds
business.
like, okay, I abstained from something that could potentially be bad.
I didn't know. I
That's
don't
gonna
know if he
change
has a
your answer
research team or not.
altogether. Okay, so
So
that's just the first
this
thing.
is
So let's
something
actually
that
look
some
at
guy
some
sent
actual
me.
data. Okay, what's really interesting with this study is they found that the people that didn't eat
Shank is
breakfast,
very
that
defensive.
always skipped it, also had the most unhealthy lifestyles. They were smokers, they were generally drinkers, they were generally people that weren't sleeping a whole lot, and overall just had very unhealthy lifestyle habits. Okay, well the study doesn't put that wide out in the open. It just goes ahead and it links it right back to breakfast being the culprit. Because that's right, you can smoke and drink yourself to death, but as long as you're eating breakfast, you're all good. Show me the sense in that. So here's where we have to take sort of an objective look. And you as my viewers and you as an audience here probably have some understanding of intermittent fasting to some degree. There is a gigantic difference between intermittent fasting and skipping breakfast with an intention.
Just calling him a
or just
triangle
skipping
shank. Just
breakfast.
chill the fuck
You see,
out, man.
I
I'm
call
sure
the people that just skip
he's
breakfast
fine.
without any intention metabolically irresponsible. Okay, these are the kind of people that perhaps just wake up and they're so wrapped up in their day, they don't care about their health. They have their cup of coffee with their cream and their sugar, and they don't actively skip breakfast consciously. They're skipping breakfast because they're like, oh, I'm busy, I don't really care, I'm not that hungry, whatever. And then they overeat at lunch. And that overeating process in and of itself is terrible. So then they're just allocating all their calories to a different time. The point is that it's not the same as fasting. Okay, skipping breakfast could be bad if you have other poor lifestyle habits that are intertwined
Jeez,
with it.
all right.
Now, here's an interesting
Go
thing.
throw out some people.
Who funded this study? Okay, we don't really know yet. It takes a little bit of time before that information comes out. But let me give you another example that might just connect a few dots for you. There was a study that was published in the journal Nutritional Science a number of years back that found, again, that skipping breakfast was linked to poor health. Well, guess who funded that study? Take a guess. Quaker oatmeal. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't remember the last time I had oatmeal for dinner. Show me the sense in that. Okay, a study that is funded by
What
a
video is
breakfast
this?
company
Skipping breakfast is bad. New
that
study
wants
results.
to come in and say that skipping breakfast is bad.
I'm guessing it's some sort of
Okay, doesn't
nutrition
really make a whole lot of
fitnessy
sense, right?
channel. I'm not
Okay,
exactly
so
sure. This is
let's
just
wash our hands.
put in my Discord, and I'm wondering why
Let's just-
somebody
let's
thought
just
that I would
let
have
this
something
slide
valuable to
and
say
pretend
about
they
this.
Never existed because obviously they're full of baloney.
But then, like,
talk
what's it
about some quick
called?
benefits.
Then people in the chat just started getting really fucking mad
Journal
at me for
PLOS
like no
one
reason.
found that in the morning, your insulin levels are higher. your
Someone made
cortisol
some
levels
joke
are
about
higher,
him being triangular,
testosterone
and
levels are
fucking
higher,
Shank
and
had like a
catecholamines, like
meltdown
epinephrine,
about
are
it.
significantly higher.
And then
By the
somebody
way,
else was
your
just like
insulin
trying to
levels are
attack me. I don't know
60%
why.
higher, astronomically high. Okay, This means that whatever you eat in the morning is going to get absorbed and stored significantly easy. Why would you want to do that? That's reason number one. Eating in the morning is a perfect time to just store whatever you eat. But also, normally, if you have these catecholamines, like epinephrine and adrenaline, that are elevated in the morning, that's what's going to allow you to mobilize fat and burn fat.
How do I feel about the
Jews?
Oh, you're one of those people.
Insulin levels to come
Bye.
down naturally. You don't need to be eating things when your insulin levels are high.
Man, there's like a lot of really shitty people in here.
Not eat breakfast. Okay, the other thing we want to look at is something as simple as the migrating motor complex. This is the mechanical digestion. This is the process of when we eat food or not eating food, what happens within our gut. If we go a specific period of time without eating, we get the rumbles in our tummy, right? Well, there's an actual mechanism to that and a reason. Okay, it's the migrating motor complex, and it's literally this motility that occurs within your gut to sweep out bad particles and sweep out bad bacteria.
This is stupid.
All these other things that need to get out of your system. Help clean your body. Now, there's a very strong link to a healthy gut,
Jesse
healthy
Lee
mind,
Pierce and
enteric nervous system, all of that.
Yeah, this is weird. So yeah, I will say I don't know fucking shit about intermittent. I think this is like a tough thing about intermittent fasting and like skipping breakfast, and oh god, I don't. What's it called? I think that there's a lot. I have no definitive answers on this. To be fair, like I said, this is not. I read books about political violence and death and destruction and colonization and shit. I haven't had time to read CrossFit guy memos and stuff like that. So, I don't know. What can I say? Oh well. They're not all winners. What can you say? Alright, what's the next thing we got on this thing? This is the Railrodder. Oh, this is that fucking thing that 255's been trying to make me watch. I don't know why this is a thing that we're supposed to be watching. 255's got a fairly bad track record of showing us videos that are weird or boring, but we'll see what happens. Hey, thank you for the super chat. Ever think about doing a Dead Country about Rhodesia? I wouldn't be against it, actually. I don't understand the point of this video at all. All I am is confused. I've never been to Djibouti. No, I have not. What's the Thursday stream about? I don't stream on Thursdays. What does my cat smell like? Doesn't smell like anything, it's a cat. Did I see people freaking out about the Hagia Sophia being turned into, what's it called? Some of the Hagia Sophia being turned into a mosque today. Yeah, I mean, the story behind that is complicated as fuck. That's a very tough building to really like have a take on. I probably have to read some more stuff to really figure out what's going on with that. But yeah, Islamophobes are definitely freaking the fuck out over the fact that Hagia Sophia is being returned into a mosque, because it was already a mosque before. It was just turned into a museum because it's like one of the world's most, iconic buildings. Yeah, multi-faith, yeah. I don't get the video either. This is like... It's 24 minutes long, Jesus Christ. Man, there's some real assholes in the chat today. Is this... Alright, I'm definitely not going to watch all of this, but I wanted to talk a little bit about this Hagia Sophia thing. So first of all, Naruto is... in the YouTube chat is being a fucking prick. Or basically a racist. Not realizing that... there are plenty, what's it called? You're talking about the Hagia Sophia being turned into a mosque. Like, you realize that this isn't the first time it's been a mosque. It was a mosque during the Ottoman Empire as well. Whether or not that's a good idea, obviously it's like a big... Alright, obviously it's weird stuff that's going on with the whole, like, desecularization of Turkey going on under Erdogan's government. But, like, it was a church into a mosque. Hey, Naruto, how many fucking churches in Andalusia do you think have been turned into... How many mosques in Andalusia do you think have been turned into churches? Huh? Do you want to make a guess? I'll bet it's in the hundreds. Huh? Or is it okay... Oh, is it okay, though, when white people murder and steal from Muslims? That's fine. That's fine when you do it. When you kill and murder and commit ethnic cleansing on Muslims, that's cool. But when the Turks, like, blow down the Thessalonian walls in, like, the fucking 15th century, you're gonna have a fucking meltdown about it? Like, oh my god. Yeah, remember when the Spanish literally tore down the most holy spot in Tenochtitlan to build a cathedral? You're against war. This isn't a war. It sounds like you're not against war. You're against Islam. You just hate Muslims. Like... Muslims shouldn't have colonized Andalusia? Sure. Yeah, I'm just gonna go and write a letter to the fucking Umayyad Caliph in the fucking 12th century to say, hey, cut it out. There we are. Yeah, I'm not saying I am like, I'm not going to defend the turning of the Hagia Sophia into a mosque. Obviously, it's a, like, World Heritage site. It should be treated as, like, a place where everybody is in a what's it called? It's a place that belongs to the world. And so many cultures and stuff have gone through that. I'm not a fan of Recep Tayyip Erdogan, but I sure is fucking mad about the people who are not mad at this because it is a a taking over, or if it's not talking about it as if it's like desecularizing a like part of human heritage, but instead having like a fucking meltdown because the Muslims did a thing, which, like, go to hell. Good Lord, this stream is a bad idea. Listen, we're trying to watch the weird ass, example of the weird shit that the Film Board of Canada would fund back in the day, and people are taking it up with being mad that Muslims exist, which is, like, not my favorite thing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that Muslims agree. Love you, Tristan. Maybe doing YouTube at the same time isn't a good idea. I don't know. Just having some, what's it called? You just have to, like, you know, deal with people coming in and out. It's just like, this is just like what it was like when I first went onto Twitch as well. And this is what it was like when what's it called? When the Discord server first opened. You gotta wait for all the people to come in and, you know, have their have themselves, you know, you have to wait for all the trolls to get booted out, and then you have to, like, reassess. You have to like filter them all out. This is the worst thing I recommend. Have you been outside of Canada? Yes, I have. I have been to. I am not a ferret of Islam. Shouldn't. It's a normal religion that is same as every other one. I have been to probably what's it say? Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 countries. Been to what's it called? UK, France, United States, Canada, Mexico, and the Dominican Republic. All right, let's keep going. Oh, God. Nice, soothing, weird Canada stuff. Alright, I think I've had, like, just about enough of this. So, like... Is that Buster Keaton? Yes, obviously. Okay. Oh, man. So yeah, this what this is like a perfect example of, like, the weirdness that is the what's it called? Canadian, like, the Film Board of Canada has done a bunch of weird stuff like this. What is this? What the hell am I watching? Some animes. People love that anime. Send the link, please. Link to what? Sam Harris told me if you open the Quran, it says kill all non-Muslims and rape. Yeah, for real. I have no idea what the point of this thing is. So, I don't know, like, why people want me to react to, like, the strangest, weirdest things. All right, let's see what this is.
And Tracy, what do you make of all this?
Oh God, this is, yeah, this is like that bullshit transphobia stuff. I don't know if I really want to. We already have people who are, like, mad that Muslims exist. Are we really going to get into, like, weird British Ricky Gervais transphobia? I don't know if we can handle that in today's day and age. I don't really want to platform this kind of shit. So let's just move on to something fun. All right, let's see what this is. This is a meme. Okay. Now here is a meme we can get behind. Okay. Let's see. So this is a meme of a potential Canadian election where there are okay. So the majority party is the Step Back History Party. Okay, I'm digging it. I'm digging the sea of purple. And then revenir en arrière dans l'histoire. Like, it's kind of like reverse, like step in reverse in history. Yeah, I mean, like it's a very literal Google link translation, obviously, but I can't complain. I do like that. It is a nice touch that Quebec still has its own Step Back History Party. I like that quite a bit. Oh man. Yeah. All right. Let's deal with this guy here. Where is Shank? There he is. Listen, you just throw out enough of the crumb bombs, everything starts to calm down. And there you go. He done. Now we can all have a good time. Quebec City is pretty. I am a big fan of Quebec City. I last went there back in 2013, and I would go back in a heartbeat again. Last time I went there, I was by myself for most of the day, and it was a nice hot day, and I got to visit one of my friends for a little bit, and yeah. I love what's called Quebec City. For anyone who doesn't know, is like the first like big. I don't know. It's like it's a big colonial city, so it's got like a castle and like it's like a 1600s town, which has like a castle and like a lot of cruise ships come in and out of it, and so like. There's a lot of like touristy stuff, and it's got like a bunch of music festivals, and it's like probably one of the prettiest cities in Canada for sure, possibly North America, or at least between Canada and the U.S. for sure. Alberta did elect an NDP government. You just need to split the Conservative vote. Yeah, now that we've got the UCP, that probably won't ever happen again. Freaking Quebec. It is true. Quebec is got some issues with being very racist. I was working for CCLA when Bill 21 came out, which was a bill that was going to what was it? It was the secularization law that was basically going to say that if you are a woman with if you're a woman who wears a headscarf as part of your religious faith, you're not allowed to work in the public sector. That was fun. That passed. And I don't know if it got a successful constitutional challenge, but that's yeah, the Winter Carnival in Quebec is quite an experience. I think I did something with that. I made like a video. I think in my History of Quebec video, I do a little bit about La Bonhomme or something like that. Something like that. It was pretty funny. Fucking Bonhomme. You down with UCP? No. Who'd be down with UCP? I am not. So like what happened was that in Alberta, which is this province here, so obviously they've gone through a political change because now they're all voting for me. They have at the provincial level, their provincial government, their party, they had a time where their main political parties were the NDP, which is sort of our social democratic party. But then they also had the conservative, the Progressive Conservative Party, and the Progressive Conservative Party had until a few years ago, the Progressive Conservatives had been running Alberta for like 40 years. They had held government for 40 years, and then they started to fall apart because there were some people like Alberta is like by far the most right-wing province in Canada. And so some people thought that the Progressive Conservatives weren't conservative enough. So they started this political party called the Wild Rose Party, because the Wild Rose is that's like the provincial flower of Alberta. and they left, or so they split off, and the split between the Conservative Party and the Wild Rose Party resulted in, for the first time in a long, long, long time, the NDP winning a government in Alberta. And after a few years of her being in charge, they had an election, or they decided to merge the political parties together. And now the Wild Rose Party and the Conservative Party have come together to become the just United Conservative Party, or UCP. That's what I was talking about. And so their number one policy is basically there's still a little bit of nature left in Alberta, and they want to make sure that that ends as soon as possible. Because, yeah, Greta Thunberg has said some pretty bad things about Alberta, and they deserve all of it, because Alberta is basically a province that is psychotically obsessed with destroying the earth with all possible speed. And yeah, Greta Thunberg was threatened by a few times by people working for the oil industry. That would not surprise me at all. Hey. Hey. Yeah, because like Alberta has spent the last like several decades completely changing their economy into one 100% dedicated to the production of oil, with no plans for what to do afterwards, no diversification, not even investment. Like it's not like Dubai, where Dubai's like, you know, channeled all of their oil money into building those like big fuck off towers, and it's not like what's it called, like Norway, which has the capital fund, the big capital fund to sort of pay for stuff after oil runs out. So Alberta's got none of that. They just converted into like really, really low taxes. And so, you know, that's sort of like the story that has been gone through. And yeah, so Alberta's like with nothing to go back on, and oil sort of becoming less and less of a resource that they can maintain. It's just turned into an absolute like just mad rage for trying to stop anything that is even close to trying to get off oil. And so, yeah, sometimes dealing with Alberta can be very frustrating, especially when it comes to anything to do with climate change and, you know, not building pipelines through Indigenous territory and stuff. But thank you for this meme. I love the idea of me being just having two political parties that just take over the country. Gotta love it. Okay. Is that a cat? Yeah. Yeah, she comes and goes. All right, let's see what else. What's the next one we got here? Oh, yeah, this is a good one. Cis society, trans people having a backbone about anything at all. Is this destroying my free speech? It's basically the theme of this week, isn't it? God damn, that letter. That goddamn letter. Let's see. Ultima Cool, Kuiper, Uninhabited Space, Circuitous Zones. Okay, let me just, let's see. No, I don't want to go see a shitty, irrelevant edgelord comedian with more money than self-awareness punch down to traumatize people. I don't think you should either. That's a boycott, and boycotts are deplatforming, and deplatforming is censorship. Criticism isn't censorship, and neither is deplatforming. This is true. So you think the people who own the platform should be able to just pick and choose what people can say? What if we let government enforce a strict set of criteria defining what sorts of speech private platforms must be allowed to forbid? Yes, wait, hold on. Let me know when you catch up. But the principle. Yeah, so learning a lot this week about how people don't know what free speech is, and how people are still mad about things. The cancel culture stuff is just anarcho-Tristanism for the win. I love that. What are your thoughts about the U.S. fearing cultural demoralization from the Soviets when in reality capitalist oligarchs in the U.S. have brainwashed the masses to the point of believing in alternative facts? What do I believe about thoughts about the U.S. fearing cultural demoralization? Okay. You always give me some tough questions, which is good. So this is like kind of like how people thought that under the Soviets that people were going to be like the Soviets do mind control, and that like all the stuff that they do, like the lack of being able to choose from 20 different brands of toilet paper makes you means that you're like, you know, going to be demoralized and unable to feel like you're motivated to work and stuff. I feel fairly often that the Soviets were brainwashing citizens. I mean, like the thing is, like, yeah, the U.S. like everybody is blind to their own propaganda, right? And then they kind of like are for the other or pro the other kind of thing. Not exactly sure what to go with there, but yeah. I don't know what to say. Like, yeah, both the U.S. and the USSR were practicing propaganda during the Cold War, and they both were not, you know, on the level. Do you think Tunis could have a healthy democracy? I have no reason to think why not. Why wouldn't they? What could stop them? Didn't Tunis have like the most bloodless and successful Arab Spring of all the countries? Like that's got to be pretty optimistic, right? All right. Let's see what's next. Oh, God. I think we've already watched this before, but we'll watch the intro here. So, this is the Chinese Karl Marx biopic anime, isn't it? This thing is that this is Chinese. It's not Japanese. This is like... This is the meme show. It's Karl Marx. And Friedrich Engels. And somebody else. You can tell by the lyrics that this is Chinese. This is not Japanese. It's a great meme, that's for sure. It's CG anime, it's communist RUWBY. Someone's got to be making communist art with a budget. China's the only country that could possibly do that in our day and age. There's an anime Lenin there. Well, that's adorbs.
3月14日下午
Oh
2
yeah.
点3刻，
Any doubt.
当代最伟大的思想家停
That
止
is
思想，
That is Mandarin. That
正
is.
像达尔文发现有机界的发展规律一样，马克思发现了人类历史的发展。
Let's watch a different thing.
他还发现了现代资本主义生产方式， 和它所产生的
What is
资产
this?
阶级社会。
You know Hank Green. There's no way you or anyone really could exist on the internet for any
Okay,
significant amount of time
This is
without
a
knowing
more
the Vlog Brothers or Crash
me
Course
thing to
or
respond
SciShow,
to.
or at least one of his many, many business ventures. His
Okay, so from what I remember is that this is like about, so this is this video is titled Hank Green and Capitalist Guilt, and I will say that let's have like a conversation. So like, think about Hank Green, and I have to like recuse myself a little bit in advance, just because of like, you know, this is, you know, when people are internet personalities, you become very like, it's easy to see people just as icons of ideas and not like people, etc., etc. And I guess I have to make two things perfectly clear just before we go into this stuff. So one, Hank Green and I have met on a few occasions, and he's a very nice person, and he's a very like empathetic, giving person. We've had a couple conversations that have been very well. He's given me a lot of advice and you know, time that I did not earn. And the other thing that is I have to mention is that I was the recipient of a Vlog Brothers grant, which means that I was given a little bit of. So one of the things they do is that they collect their AdSense money and give it in a grant for educational YouTube creators. And I was given a grant from them to buy some camera equipment a few years ago. So I have to mention all that before we get into like capitalist guilt and you know, Hank Green, who I have, you know, a mix of a personal and professional, and you know, also, you know, watching the stuff and everything. So I just want to get that out there right away.
generally loved, and while I think he's okay, he's no PewDiePie or Ali A as YouTubers go, I do think that he has some questionable feelings on the world, some of which I'll go into here.
Thank you for the bit, Deputy Gandalf. Also,
First off,
drink some
both
water.
John and Hank Green are basically neoliberals, as their charity work with Bill Gates demonstrates. They seek to improve the lives of people within capitalism, but don't seem to really grasp that maybe capitalism is the cause of the problems they're crowdsourcing in order to fix. The Project for Awesome does a lot of genuine good in the world. I'm not going to bother to shit-talk it to any extent. However, it does strike me as interesting that they're extremely proud of all the charity work they do for desperate people in the third world, despite the fact that their individual net worths are frankly
Your greed got to you. It's just that we're in the same industry, and like, you know, I don't have the kind of money to just like buy a camera. Also, on the whole 20 flavors of toothpaste thing in capitalism versus communism, are we being too harsh? Small pleasures like that would be good for pursuit under socialism, though obviously people's needs should come first. I mean, okay, yeah, sure. It's just that like, fairly often when like people like fairly often in capitalist societies, because everybody is so like under the thumb of surviving day to day, they often like the idea that you can choose 20 forms of toothpaste is like the definition of freedom under capitalism. And like socialists would say, hey, you know what's more important than having 20 flavors of 20 flavors of fucking toothpaste, and that is to, you know, make sure everybody has a house, and you know, that everybody is taken care of. I gotta read that. It's very difficult dealing with fans who want your attention. You are working very hard to build your platform. Keep it up. All. Thank you very much. So also, I'm dealing with a bunch of new technology, which makes things difficult. So, yeah. Like, a lot of times, like during the Cold War, the common propaganda line was like, Soviets don't have freedom because, and like, there's even this thing, there's like this meme there where somebody went to Cuba a little while back and took pictures of like a store, and there was like, the stores were just like, there was only one type of TV, and like, are all there, and it's like, yeah, like, You know what? I would take the freedom of everybody having a house, everybody having money, everybody having food, everybody being taken care of, and being able to go to the doctor over like having 20 flavors of fucking like toothpaste. That's my take.
Astronomical. John Green is pretty objectionable for a couple of ways, and like everyone else these days, he has his own Your Favour's Problematic page, and yeah, the whole thing in his book where the kids start making out in Anne Frank's house is weird as fuck, but he seems pretty disconnected from the real world, to be honest. He's a best-selling author, a couple of his books have been made into movies, and basically he's just not the most down-to-earth person in the world nowadays. Hank Green, on the other hand, whilst he's still incredible...
I met John Green once too. He's nice, he's just shy. A fairly shy person.
Incredibly rich is more interesting to me because he demonstrates a new breed of YouTube ethical capitalist, or perhaps more accurately what Slavoj Žižek describes as liberal communists, and I thought his worldview would be interesting to do.
I think that's funny too, because one of the things, and one of the I don't want to like go too much, but he said he was like one of the most communist capitalists he's ever, or something like that, and I was like, that's a weird way to say things.
According to liberal communist ethics, the ruthless pursuit of profit is counteracted by charity. Charity is part of the game.
I know people from the USSR, they didn't like it. Yeah, I did a whole video on why I like the USSR was like super duper problematic. Like, not even kidding. Like, USSR was an authoritarian top-down dictatorship that that turned into this inflexible bureaucracy of people being unable to do things lest they anger their bosses, and that's like that sucks. That's not a thing that should happen.
A humanitarian mask hiding the underlying economic exploitation. Developed countries are
what in the world is a liberal communist? Is it legit made up, or is it a Peterson term? I think it's a Žižek term, and it's supposed to, because I remember like Žižek's written about this too, where it's talking about how there's like a bunch of people who are like capitalists, like kind of like Tom's Shoes, you know, and like Tom's Shoes is like an example of like, hey, we're making millions of dollars to this organization, but also we notice that capitalism destroys people, and so like very often like liberal communism would be like, it's like this idea that like, yeah, you're a capitalist, but you acknowledge that communism's right, and you typically use things like money, like giving to charity and things like that, to sort of assuage the guilt that you get from participating in an unjust system. And the ultimate example I think that Žižek gives in one of his talks is Tom's Shoes. And I've got like some serious issues with Žižek. I just yelled at a bunch of people for being Islamophobic, and like, so you know why I've got issues with Slavoj Žižek, but yeah. Why did only the Lenin, Stalin's, Mao succeed, and the Rosa Luxemburgs and Lula da Silvas were murdered or framed? Can non-authoritarian socialism ever defeat capitalism? Well, I hope so. I hope to be vindicated of that someday. I always thought liberal communists were left-wing libertarians. No, like liberalism is like liberal in this term. Like, it's not like liberalism like the American political vernacular, but like political science term, where liberal is an idea where there is a emphasis put on free markets and capital. Like, capitalism has the freedom to buy things as like the ultimate symbol of what freedom means. I think that's where they're going here, but let's continue.
Constantly helping undeveloped ones with aid, credits, etc., and so avoid the key issue: their complicity in and responsibility for the miserable situation of the third world. As for the opposition between smart and non-smart, outsourcing is the key notion. You export the necessary dark side of production, disciplined, hierarchical labor, ecological...
Yeah, here's the part that they're talking about, or what I was talking about.
To non-smart third world locations, or invisible ones in the first world. The ultimate liberal communist dream is to export the entire working class to invisible third world sweatshops. Green's opinions on capitalism as a concept is rather confused. He seems to be of the opinion that we need to improve society, and that wealth inequality is inherently a negative thing. In fact, on the surface, both of the Vlog brothers seem to support a number of left-leaning ideas, like universal healthcare. The fact that such an obvious concept can be described as left-leaning rather than the norm says a lot about politics, both in the US and UK, where the Conservative government is constantly attempting to undermine the NHS. As a side note, I actually wrote that bit under the impression that it was true, but I've since looked it up and it's not true.
It's also accurate to say that it would cost hundreds of thousands of jobs, and many of them would be good-paying jobs, from medical device salespeople to insurance adjusters to marketing managers.
They can't.
Oh yeah. When the Vlogbrothers start talking about the thing is, okay, like you can tell how neoliberal somebody is with how many like asterisks and caveats they start getting into whenever the idea of Medicare for all comes up, because like you see this with like Ezra Klein and stuff too, where like the second that you start talking about like healthcare should be a right, and they'll be like, I agree with you, the healthcare should be a right. But what about, and then they go into all these like reasons that like, oh yeah, it would be a disruption to the market and people would lose, like Vice, I remember, wrote an article that was trying to say that Bernie Sanders was sexist because there are a lot of women who work in healthcare billing, and every time they bring that stuff up, because they're trying to like both sides, it's like them trying to hedge their bets about like trying to walk away from like the central message, which is that Medicare for all is a necessary moral stance, that there should be, that there's like, yeah, you could deal with the fact that jobs might be lost by, or as in this case, not actually true, but like healthcare is a human right. We can work back from Medicare for all and figure out how to make things work after that, but like, no, you gotta do it first. This is like what's it called? It's like the exact same people who, there were people back in like the 1800s who were like, slavery is bad. I agree. I believe that we need to get rid of slavery. But if you got rid of slavery like now, it would be complete chaos. So like we need to like gradually end slavery. And it's like, no, this is a moral and ethical horror that is being inflicted on human rights and needs to be ended like yesterday, because it's a thing that never should happen in the first place. And I feel the exact same way that like that is what Medicare for all should be. Like most countries have figured out already, no, you can't really like price people's access. It's a human right to have access to healthcare. And it's just like, yeah, you can deal with the economic ramifications after you deal with the moral imperative that you need a public healthcare system.
Can't even commit to supporting universal healthcare because of jobs. Jesus fucking Christ! Opposing private prisons and poverty, etc. However, like most neoliberals and centrists, completely misses the seemingly obvious fact that the reason that these problems exist, the reason we have private prisons and healthcare, the reason that poverty is unable to exist in the first place, is because of capitalism. The reason that the Green Brothers' charity efforts, much of which does a lot of good, is even necessary is because of an economic system from which they benefit. If we had global communism rather than global capitalism, does anyone seriously believe that a billion people would still be malnourished and struggling for clean drinking water? Probably the most illuminating illustration of this is Green's rare discussion of politics on Twitter. Like, take a look at this shit. Seriously, Green actually took the time to type this out and thought,
10 years in business taught me that it isn't capitalism that's fucked up. It's people who use that as an excuse to be their worst self. Oh, dear God, that is a bad take.
but it was a valid point, and clearly still does, because it's still up on his profile. He didn't delete it. This is a screenshot, not something I had to pull out of the Wayback Machine or anything. So just to make it absolutely clear, Hank Green believes that his time in business has demonstrated to him the capitalist system is not broken or corrupt, but merely that the individual people who run businesses are the broken, fucked up ones. How very Randian. There are a number of responses one could make to this. In fact, let me just take a couple minutes to do just that. First, we could point out that if a system rewards selfish and abusive behaviour, and thus literal psychopaths, or on a less extreme level, just selfish, vindictive people, and encourages them to gain positions of extreme power over others, maybe that's a problem with the system, rather than just the people who benefit from it. Secondly, as anyone on the left can attest, this argument that Green uses to defend capitalism is often used to push the narrative that socialism could never win, because bad actors will take advantage of the system for their own personal gain to the detriment of others. So I'm afraid I must turn around and apply it back to itself. Capitalism is a nice idea in theory, but in practice human nature is just inherently selfish, so it could never work. Don't get me wrong, I don't agree with the human nature anti-socialism stuff. In fact, I think that people are inherently collaborative. That is, after all, how societies come to function in the first place. But if you're going to attempt to defend capitalism against the left using a tactic often used against the left on a semi-regular basis, you're gonna have to expect it to be turned back on you. And finally, of course, this is nothing more than confirmation bias. Hank Green believes himself to be an ethical businessman, and as a capitalist, if he acknowledges that capitalism is the problem with society, he necessarily also has to admit that he is a part of that problem.
That reminds me of like how when he was making the Internet Creators Guild, that like they went to such extreme lengths to say this is not a union, and it makes me wonder if Complexly, their company, the big like Vlogbrothers company, if their employees are unionized, because my guess is they're not, and I wonder if they tried to unionize, what would happen. I would imagine that the Vlogbrothers might forget to be awesome a couple times if it ever came down to the fact that, like, you know, if their employees ever tried to unionize. Capitalism incentivizes you to be your worst self. Yes, because like capitalism from its very nature is designed to maximize profits. And so by that very thing, you have to make as much money while spending as little money as possible, which means you're incentivized to keep wages as low as possible with the bonus incentive where if they're just struggling to survive, then they can't leave your job and they're more desperate to hang on to things. And then they, what's it called? And capitalism also means that anything that you, like the most amount that you can charge for something for the worst service is the best incentive. And getting rid of things that cost money and impact profit margins, like safety regulations, labor laws, are all incentivized to get taken away. So those are big aspects. And then on top of that, like the on top of that, it's not like as if it's just like pure greed. Like very often, and what's happening is as we start to have more and more production, the profit margin is getting smaller on average over time. And so to some places, especially smaller companies, like the profit margins are so thin that like they feel like they have to be their worst selves or else they're going to go under, which is like, that's a dark incentive. But even with bigger corporations, they'll still try to do whatever they can to fuck off. And if anybody here is going to come in here and talk about, but what about the competition? And like it's shown, like you've seen with like social media, or you've seen with many large corporations, that the best way to win at capitalism is not so much to beat your competition as it is to buy and destroy your competition, or to set up some kind of like syndicate, like some sort of like what's it called, price fixing and stuff like that, because that is really good for a lot of corporations. I won't pretend it's the only system through which people can be exploited. I mean, look at systemic racism. Yeah, I mean, it's not the only system. The thing about capitalism is that the logic of capitalists is to use anything possible to try and make more money, which means that other sort of inequalities and structural faults in society will be exploited to make a buck, which means that, like, if you think that you can get away with fucking over people, like if you think that you can get away with like underpaying black people because our society doesn't value black lives as well as white lives, then you can use that to get even more money out of them by making them work for lower wages. Like this, like capitalism takes all of like the kind of problems in societies and makes them worse. Hey, Rocketansky, thank you for the follow. Much appreciated. Hope your stream went really well. That's really cool. Thank you, everybody. Hi, my name's Tristan Johnson. I'm the host of Step Back History, and we're reacting today. So we're watching a video doing the really awkward thing of reacting to Hank Green, to somebody who I know personally a little bit, and this is Phoebe. So this is awkward for me. But we're talking about how capitalism is bad, and I can talk about how capitalism is bad any day of the week. So we'll keep going. But yeah.
and that's not an easy thing to do at the best of times. Not to mention that a number of his prior colleagues who also benefited not just from the system, but from him, turned out to be fucking monsters. I'll probably do a whole thing about the DFTBA records controversy at some point, because I wrote a whole thing about it here, but I took it out because it ultimately distracted from the overall point. Suffice to say, Green has been burned by his colleagues in the not too distant past, and this may very well be his basis for the worst selves comment. And it has to be difficult to reconcile that with the fact that not only do you move in the same circles, but that you benefit from the same system. Alex Day is still really popular, and
some people in the chat who this is their first time seeing Phoebes. Yeah, this is Phoebe. She's very cute. There's a Phoebe emote, so if there's anybody in the chat who's a subscriber, please, let's get some Phoebe emotes in there.
According to the internet, has a net worth of $5 million and a successful recent book despite everything he did. I kind of sympathise with him here, but he persists with this flawed line of reasoning. He then, of course, had a civil discussion with famed Turk Lacey Green. I cannot describe in words the extent to which I do not want to talk about Lacey Green, so her tweets being cut out of the screenshot.
The apartment is great. Moving out of the city has been amazing because, like, for the same price that I was paying for a, like, one-bedroom, 600-square-foot apartment, I've gotten, like, a double the size apartment, which I've been so blown away by.
All you need to know for context is that it was critical of his take. Anyway, one of the main responses he had to this was, well, this, which is quite simply incorrect. The final tweet I want to discuss is this one, where he sets up a straw man in order to make the accusation that literally anyone believes that ending capitalism will solve literally any problem ever, which I'm sure those people do exist, but I've never met any. Obviously, the first thought that came to mind when I first saw this was, it's very reminiscent of Donald Trump's both sides rhetoric.
That's very much like, yeah, I was like, there are some class reductionists out there, but yeah, not that much. There's no one who, I don't think there's anybody who thinks that, like, racism would go away the second we get rid of capitalism. That's an unfair assessment. Ow. I just kicked my table and it hurt.
You had a group on one side that was bad, and you had a group on the other side that was also very violent. And nobody wants to say that, but I'll say it right now.
Which surprised me, because I never saw Hank as someone who could ever be seriously compared to Trump, but here we are, I guess. At this point seems to be a disingenuous attempt to discredit the left as a bunch of delusional idiots who think that achieving one of their goals means that no problems can ever exist ever, whilst also attacking, I guess, ANCAPs? I suppose it's pretty standard centrist rhetoric at this point, but the problem here is that we currently live under a global capitalist system, and pointing out that it's not working out so well is not the same thing as ignoring that things are going badly, and it's
This is sort of one of the reasons why I have a plan someday, probably in the far future, like probably years from now. I want to make a podcast called This is America, which is going to be a sort of like, like the History of Rome podcast? I'm going to make one of those, but for the United States. And it's going to be, it's going to follow the AP history curriculum, but it's going to be like, not the it's gonna be a little bit more radical and critical than what you saw in the Crash Course U.S. History series, which was really good, but it is still a little bit whitewashed, like a Howard Zinn version type thing. I just love the title of This is America. That's gonna be hopefully I'll get to that at some point. I want to make it like a really big project. Like I want to do seasons and stuff.
That we just need more of the current non-functional system. Also, nice job demonising people with mental illnesses there, Hank, you shithouse. So now we have a semi-solid idea of the way Hank feels about capitalism. We've reached a point in the video where I have to actually talk about the thing that inspired me to talk about this in the first place. Hank Green recently released a series of 2 videos, which I want to discuss, mostly dealing with his own personal feelings of guilt over finding himself in a position of relative privilege, both from his family and from his business ventures as an adult, and I think it perfectly encapsulates the contradictions in his worldview, so let's dive in. We start out with a little story in which a feudal lord accuses his serf of picking some flowers, to which the serf responds that he believed they were weeds, and then the feudal lord explains the significance of the flowers, and we set the stage for the topic of the video, guilt. Essentially, Hank was given certain privileges that most people do not. Looking at the American student loan system from the outside is particularly weird, incidentally, because in the UK we don't have to pay ours back until we earn enough that it might make sense. So if you're earning enough to be paying anything towards your student loans, you're already doing relatively well for yourself, and that makes him feel guilty. One is forced to ask, if he really felt so bad that he had this huge advantage over his peers, why has he never done anything to oppose student loans? Why has he not made any videos calling for the abolition of student loans as a concept? The closest he's come, as far as I'm aware, is just one video from 2015 where he makes the point that student loans are a good deal, as people with degrees on average earn more than those without, but that universities should be spending their funding on more academic-based things rather than stuff that looks good on prospectuses. He actually does mention that a large contributing factor towards this is the capitalist system in which we live, but stops short of actually criticising said system.
What's driving this is, in a word, sales. Colleges are acting more like businesses and treating students more like customers. Schools compete with each other, and in a world where the costs are really high anyway, it starts to look a little fuzzy when a student's deciding between $310 payments for 10 years and $340 payments. That's only $30 a month! And if one school has really nice dorms, a well-supported tutoring program, nice athletic fields, a super dope climbing wall, a celebrity-level professor, cushy mattresses, and local organic produce at the cafeteria salad bar, then both the parents, who are probably footing a big hunk of the bill, and prospective students are likely to choose the more expensive option. Some of those things are worthwhile. Others don't have much use beyond, like, looking pretty cool on prospective student weekend.
Instead opting for a sort of, it's great value for money, but if only there was some alternative to a system in which large for-profit organisations strive to sell product, rather than provide a great service and work for the betterment of greater society.
The absolutely nutso thing about all of this is that it still works, because even at these juicily inflated prices, college is still a good deal. Money spent on a bachelor's, associate's, or professional degree yields a higher return than the stock market. Even dropping out of college after 18 months has a higher yield than the stock market, though not as high as graduating. So in a way, colleges are just working their way up to costing as much as the value they provide. But I think
yeah, like I hate that like idea of like valuing an education in strictly the sense of like how much money it can make you. That is something I cannot abide. We've talked about this a few times on this YouTube Twitch stream YouTube channel thing. That like education has value outside of financial reasoning, and the fact that it costs money makes it a barrier to a lot of people. The fact that it's not so much that even that it's like a good investment, the fact that it's basically a requirement to have a successful life now, and on top of that, that the price makes like barriers for people to get in, and because of that, you are like permanently making the poorest people unable to get to school, are able to go to school unless they can get like, unless they can get like outrageously good grades or like, a scholarship of some, like a sports scholarship or something like that, like something to get them through. And that sucks, because education is a good thing. Whether or not you use it to make money, it is good for people to spend some years developing themselves after high school. I find that, I don't know if I don't think anybody is like really prepared to just like go out into the world after high school. Like, you need a few years to become yourself. And very much often I find that people who go to university and stuff like that, thank you, by the way, PW5997, thank you for following, that people who are, people like university is like a place where you can develop an identity outside of the one that you grew up in a way. You can kind of develop your own self and explore ideas and spend a lot of time sort of becoming who you are. And like that, you can't put money on that value because it's not a profit thing. And the problem with capitalism is that it turns every part of life, even things like this, like education and development and just like the right to not be poor, like the right to not be like destitute, is all tied to how capable you are of making money for other people. And I hate that so much.
We can all safely agree that college should not be about maximizing revenue, especially for state schools. The question isn't really whether college is a good deal, it's whether college could be a better deal. It seems a little like the increase in spending is kind of a natural outgrowth of a capitalist society and people making decisions that benefit them, at least in the short term. But it's worth asking if treating America's students like customers is in the end going to be a disservice to everyone. Maybe we shouldn't be selling students an experience. Maybe we should be providing them with as much enrichment and, dare I say it, education as possible.
Anyway, getting back to the original video, Hank complains about his own feelings of guilt and that he feels guilty for something he didn't do and that he used to deal with these feelings badly by either not thinking about it and surrounding yourself with equally privileged people, or giving in to the meritocracy argument that I made a video about previously, or finally the correct answer, which is to feel guilty over the unearned advantages in life. He then talks about the way that psychologists often talk about guilt in a positive way to discourage immoral or unacceptable behaviour in a society. I'm not going to go into the fact that this interpretation implies that capitulating to society's whims is always a positive thing, which I would argue it isn't. Like, I'm sure abolitionists in the 19th century were made to feel guilty about the way their public actions reflected on their families, but that doesn't mean they were wrong, and eventually comes to the conclusion that it is the correct response to feel guilty over unearned wealth. The conclusion to this video is interesting, because he concludes that in order to process this guilt, we must instead put those advantages to good use.
The answer is, I think, yes. Because no, you don't deserve the guilt in the same way you don't deserve the money. And I don't deserve ulcerative colitis or a healthy child or beautiful fall days or really funny internet memes. I don't deserve my guilt, and I don't
in the
deserve
chat say that they
advantages
used to be
I've been
friends
given,
with
because
Hank
deserving is
Green.
the wrong
Really?
frame. I have that stuff, and the question isn't what did
It's
I
like
do
blood
to
and
deserve
donuts or
it.
something?
It's what do I do?
I gotta hear more
with it?
about
Do I
this.
take
Are
my
you like,
guilt and
you
let
like
it
live in
weigh me
Montana or
down
something?
and terrify me and prevent me from ever feeling good? Or do I take my guilt and let it encourage me to do good stuff with the advantages I've been given? Wasting energy feeling ashamed of something you didn't do? No. Recognizing the advantages you have and being motivated to use them to help people who weren't so lucky? Yeah.
And once again, we are back to the liberal communist ideal. Hank feels guilty about being wealthy, but he's not going to give up being wealthy. So instead he uses his implied charitable work and entertainment value of his videos as a kind of, yeah, but I'm doing good. When, let's be honest here, he's never going to make an anti-capitalist or pro-socialist video or turn his businesses into co-ops or really do anything to actually affect or impact society in such a way as to eradicate the possibility of unearned privilege and wealth. It's so frustrating because it's like he's on the cusp of realising and acknowledging that it's the system that's at fault, and then it just kind of ends.
It's the
obviously
capitalism
after that,
that
I
is
was
bad.
desperate to find out what happened next, and after a few days, John Green made a video on Vlogbrothers, and I was honestly fascinated to see how the less introspective Green brother would respond to this question. Let's give it a watch.
Because time spent trying to do or make something beautiful never feels wasted to me. In a related story, I will be back playing video games as a pacifist in the near future over at Hank Games, but before that, Hank, I will see you on Monday.
Okay, so it's mostly about exploration and other unrelated topics, including trying to get an audience of mostly younger people to buy Vlogbrothers merch, but there's this interesting little snippet at the end. Oh, wait, my mistake. He doesn't mention it once. Fuck's sake. Okay, fine. What about Hank's personal channel? Aha! Result. Hank made a follow-up video. Let's watch and see what he has to say. It's titled, Should I Be Guilty or Grateful? Which isn't encouraging, but
What's the
we'll
video
see.
called?
Right,
This
so
video is
apparently Hank got
called
some pushback
This video is called Hank Green and Capitalist Guilt.
from people saying that he shouldn't feel guilty for his unearned privilege, but grateful that he was able to have these advantages. He was obviously unhappy
from,
about these comments
Sheep
because this
in the
video
Box.
is essentially a
This
response
is my
to
first
that
time seeing it.
argument,
It's a pretty
which
good
is
video, but-
admittedly really shitty, not gonna lie. But he does specifically say that he's not
This is the only
ashamed
video
of his
I've
wealth,
seen, so I
but
can't
that the
vouch
fact
for the
he's
whole channel.
benefiting from injustice. The problem is, of course, that he does not actually do anything with his wealth to change that. As a wealthy guy, he could do a lot more than he currently does to combat this inequality. Guilt is fine, in fact it's probably the correct response, but as he himself said in the original video, the purpose of guilt is to push us to do better, and I don't think he does that as much as he realistically could. And that's rather sad, really. It means he'll perpetually feel guilty over something that will never really be resolved until he realises the extent to which he could do more. The video ends with a kind of ironic double standard.
And I was just so surprised by this, that it kept coming up over and over again. I was like, why is this bad take? Like, why is this sort of nonsensical argument showing up over and over again? And ultimately, it's because it sounds nice. It's like, okay, I can discard my fear about being on the wrong side of the inequality curve by just saying, oh, well, the people who I love and respect and should love and respect worked hard to give that for me, so I should honor them by perpetuating injustice? I don't think that's the people what the people who I am grateful to would want me to do. And maybe that's different for you. But if this is something that like appeals or that has come up and you've been like, okay, yeah. To some extent, I think that might just be like giving us an excuse to not worry about it. Because let me put it this way. If you're saying instead of feeling guilty, feel grateful, let me rephrase that. Instead of...
Gotta do an alert. Everybody who has the Romeo emote, please, let's get some spam for the Romeo. So this is Romeo. This is my other cat. He's paying a visit. Rare. These are a rare treat. Romeo does not come onto the stream as often. He's not as attached, so this is a rare Romeo sighting. Hey? That's a bless to the Friday stream. So this is a good omen. Hey.
Of feeling like you should recognize injustice and act in accordance with that, feel thankful to the people who have loved you. Does it sound like those things have anything to do with each other?
¿Por qué no las dos?
He gets mad at these commenters for wanting to assuage their guilt by shifting their feelings of guilt over benefiting from equality by twisting it to form this "I should be grateful instead" argument, which stops them having to do anything, but doesn't seem to realise that in the same way he could be criticised for feeling guilt but still not doing enough to attempt to rectify or eradicate this inequality. He accuses these commenters of perpetuating injustice, but by supporting capitalism and not doing everything he can to push more left-leaning ideals, he could also be criticised for perpetuating injustice. Almost done with these videos, I promise. After that video, the Vlogbrothers videos sort of just continued as normal. Hank made one when he tries to vlog his old YouTube game show as a pub quiz. John made a video where he discusses the financial situation of the Nerdfighter community, including all of their YouTube and some of their merch sales going to charity, which is nice, but then he drops this bombshell and actively admits that barely any of his and Hank's personal wealth is actually doing much here.
I want to emphasize that it is far more generous for a person with $10 to donate $1 to a cause they care about than for a person with $1 million to donate $100,000 to a cause they care about. It's really easy for rich people to seem altruistic, and we're making this transition because we can afford to. Okay, back to the video.
Like, he mentions that $50,000 they already have is being donated.
Right, so Nerdfighteria has a charity called the Foundation to Decrease World Suck, which, despite its silly name, is a real charity devoted to trying to decrease the overall level of suck in the world. And the foundation raises money all year long in anticipation of our big annual charity event, the Project for Awesome. This year, the foundation has about $50,000 in the bank going into the P4A. Some of this came from Amazon Smile, some from people's work.
Our little Romeo encounter has finished.
Giving programs. A bunch came from Tab for a Cause, which lets you raise money for charity while you browse the web. And also half of the revenue from this YouTube channel goes to the foundation, so thank you for watching ads and or subscribing to whatever YouTube Red is currently called.
But both of the Green brothers are multi-millionaires. No one seems to really question this, though. The Project for Awesome has raised $7 million for charities since 2012.
Since 2012, the Project for Awesome has raised over $7.5 million for charities, supporting causes from cancer research to clean water initiatives.
John Green's personal wealth is $17 million. John Green could give less than half of that away tomorrow and do a lot more good for the world than his charities have in 5 years, without him noticing too much of a change in his lifestyle, if any. And as such, we're forced to ask, why? Why do these two brothers, both of whom could contribute so much money in a day that it would dwarf the work their charity has done over the past half-decade, push for others to donate, buy merch for which the profits go to charity, etc.? The answer, I think, is simple. As the liberal communists of Zizek's imagining, they want to have their cake and eat it, to be both unbelievably wealthy and be seen as altruists of the highest order, without even a slight change in lifestyle.
That's like the peak of like...
To criticize...
Sorry.
As the system that causes inequality, but not directly, and not in such a...
Phoebe was stepping on the keyboard. That is like the essence of like was Zizek's whole idea. And yeah, there's like a lot of people out there, there's a lot of rich people out there who have that exact feeling that they try to use their charity. In many ways, they are a way, it's like a way for them to... I know this is going to be a weird comparison, but I think it makes sense. It's like an indulgence. Like, there's, I think, a term in psychology where if like you do a nice thing, like if you gave like $5 to charity, you feel like you have like moral permission to be less moral. And I can think that a lot of people who find themselves becoming wealthy capitalists, like the Green Brothers, but also find themselves like, having a conscience and being worried about that, and not having sort of a fully developed it's a way for them to use a little bit of money to make them feel good about themselves, to make them not feel the guilt that they feel for benefiting from a system that hurts people. Is being rich bad? I mean, it depends upon how rich. It's like pretty hard to make. There's a certain amount of money that you can make that you really can't get to that amount of money by doing ethical things, but it all comes down to being what's the name of this video? The video is called Hank Green and Capitalist Guilt. It's from the YouTube channel Sheep in the Box. I guess I should probably go and check with Lumiru about like how to properly make these things. But yeah, it's part of a system justifying belief, which is like this idea that you need to you develop these theories to if you are benefiting from the way that society is, you are going to develop a worldview and ideology that is built around seeing yourself as the good person and the protagonist in society. And I think that this makes sense in this situation. There's two ways you can go down. You can go down like the conservative route of thinking that all this is good somehow, or you can go down this route of thinking you have guilt, and so if you pay enough money, you can pay off your guilt or something.
A way that it might actually come across as supporting any opposing system. Anyway, the point is that this idea, the idea of guilt and how one should feel with learning that they live in relative privilege, and how they can work to make the best of that situation, never comes up again. Hank raised the question, gave an incredibly shallow answer, and then just moved on, and left it sitting there unanswered, at least to my satisfaction. Your mileage may vary. I'm not a paranoid person or conspiracy-minded at all, but quite frankly this seems to me like Hank Green brought up a topic that caused him to have a pretty severe existential crisis and clearly upsets him a lot, but he cannot allow himself to indulge in real, serious self-reflection on this matter, because his entire worldview is based around the premise that the answer to our current situation as far as climate change, poverty, etc. is concerned is capitalism, but more ethical, and the idea that capitalism is inherently unethical is anathema to him. He just cannot accept that, and that's really quite sad. I don't hate it.
Yeah, so what if you earn money working hard on your own, you have no workers? I think that even still I struggle to think of a way, it depends on what your definition of rich is, but first of all, there's going to be no real ethical way to make money. But a way to make enough money that you get actually wealthy, I can't think of a way that you can do that doesn't have victims. Like me, and that's true of people who even make, just enough to get by. There's really no way to ethically make money under capitalism. You're always going to be pushed in one way or another. Even the poorest people have to, in fact, fairly often because of this, people who are struggling through poverty have to buy cheap clothing. And how does clothing get cheap? How do I get a t-shirt that I can afford? I have to probably buy it from something that was made by a kid in Bangladesh or something. The fact that I make money through a YouTube channel, and I can't tell you how often I make money because PragerU bought ads on my channel, and I have no way to figure out how to turn it off. That's PragerU or anybody, any corporation that's trying to make money could buy time on my videos so that my anti-capitalist videos are prefaced by having to make them watch stuff that is pro-capitalism. Like, there really is, like, there's really not, like, a good way to live. We have, like, the system pushes people in all sorts of bad directions. Can't you turn off ads entirely? I could. Be hard to do stuff like pay rent and feed cats and stuff. So, you know, I don't know. You tell me. But like, I was just using that as an example. Like, everybody spends their money or makes their money in ways that are going to victimize people, because we have an economic model that is based on doing that as par for the course. The only real way to live a completely ethical life right now is like if you lived in the woods and you just like handmade everything that you needed to get by. There's Means TV, but you don't know how much Tristan gets from that. I have yet to be paid for Means TV. I'm supposed to have gotten money, but I haven't heard from them yet. I imagine I'll get it at some point.
Tank or John Green. I really like a lot of their content, especially the terrible DFTBA about but they're, at least in my mind, emblematic of this idea of the ethical capitalist or the liberal communist, and that needs to be acknowledged.
So that's good. I actually like. So like as I mentioned, maybe some people are just coming in, so I'll just bring it up again. Like, I know Hank Green, I know the Green Brothers. They've given me money to, like, they have paid money to help Step Back succeed as a YouTube channel, and that can't be taken away. And also, like, I occasionally get to go to events for educational YouTubers, and so I've met them at a couple of times. And like I've gotten like real advice. I've gotten like real response, and also these people are very nice and very generous with their time. So I just wanted to put that in there because, yeah, this is not just them. This is not just the Green Brothers. This is a very like penetrating ideology that goes through a lot of people. And the idea that you can just like pay enough to charity to kind of pay off feeling guilty for the fact that the system is fucked up is not good. It's capitalism trying to capitalize on the price of, or trying to put an actual price on people's guilt for participating in capitalism. Capitalism's endlessly adaptive, and I think that, yeah, that this system needs to be destroyed, which I hope through my work that I can talk about capitalism as a malevolent force. And in a way, since my YouTube channel is able to be a little bit of a day walker with educational YouTube, that I can bring some people over who might not normally. That's like the idea. Do you think that charity would become obsolete under socialism? I think there might be charity in the sense of like, I don't know if it would be like charity per se. It would be like solidarity work. Like there will be like, you know, volunteer disaster relief type stuff. There would be like, you know, things like Meals on Wheels and people who volunteer to help people. Like that kind of stuff I think will still be around. But like, I hope that in a society that is socialist and everybody is equal, you wouldn't have people on the other side of the world who are suffering horribly because you need your t-shirts to be cheap. That's the hope, right? Sorry if we made you sad, Tristan. No, it's okay. It's all good. This is the creator of Step Back videos, keep in mind. I deal with sad stuff basically all the time. More service-based than monetary-based charity. I can see that, yeah. What's the relationship between charity and mutual aid? Can they be compared? Charity is a top-down, while mutual aid is a horizontal approach. Mutual aid is like, I'm helping you and you are helping me, while charity is like, I am giving money to you because I am your benevolent patron. That kind of thing. Let's see what's next up. Let's see what's the next video.
The Constitution does not decree the right to keep and bear arms.
Oh yeah, I should probably, you know, change the camera so that you can actually see the thing that we're watching. All right.
The Constitution does not decree the right to keep and bear arms. It says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
The NRA believes that America's laws should be obeyed, and we will defend the right to bear arms
by any means necessary.
Yeah.
We will not be docile for our oppressors.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're with the NRA?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a problem?
No,
of course not. The NRA thinks that everyone should have guns.
Yes, all my brothers should have guns. And we will not rest until we are roaming the streets heavily armed.
Absolutely. How many brothers do you have?
Our numbers grow daily.
This is so good. I feel like, because this is basically like talking about the Black Panthers, and this is like this whole idea that like, yeah, you want America, you want like white America to all of a sudden become pro-gun control. Black people buying guns en masse would do it. I remember like what's it called? And I mean they should, because if there is anybody who needs a Second Amendment right to protect themselves from the government, it's not fucking white suburbanites. It's like black people and LGBTQ plus people. They're the ones who need like personal defense, not so much like just like what's it called, random himbos in Texas.
With every hate crime or case of police brutality.
Good. Why do you want to own guns again?
It's my right.
Right. The Second Amendment.
I love
also
this
mentions
so
a
much.
Well-regulated militia.
We have a well-regulated militia.
Do you? Where do you live again?
That sounds like a background check.
No.
We would never do anything like that. Background checks are
an invasion of privacy.
Right.
A right is a right. It doesn't have to be justified.
Correct. That's right. Absolutely.
And it is my right to defend myself against a racist government.
Whoa. All right. The government for sure overreaches, and we hate them. But they aren't racist.
No, I wouldn't go that far.
You would if you came from where I come from.
Yeah. Where is that again?
I'm from the land that enslaved my ancestors.
Right. All right. Okay. Let's just show a little bit of control with the gun.
Gun control is not necessary. What we need is gun education. You see, this trigger right here, the slightest pressure from my finger, I could send enough bullets to rip your body in half.
That's not to be too cavalier with this, son. It could kill someone.
Yeah, guns can kill. So can knives. What, you gonna try and take away my knives too?
Yes. What do you need that thing for?
Hunting.
Season's over, man.
There's like a crossbow covered in Bowie knives. I love it.
Hunting? You said who? Yeah. Is it who you're hunting or what you're hunting?
Who are you hunting? You said who?
Who? Just now. Definitely said who.
You said who?
From my cold, dead hand.
Oh man.
Hi, I'm Raphael from College Humor.
That's solid. What's it called? That's perfect. Like, what's it called? The racial aspect of the Second Amendment is like should not be lost on anybody. The fact that like in the U.S. that like black people, if black people like the fact that people are like so against like what's it called, random people in gangs having guns, while like random like white dudes can like walk into the Virginia like state government house with like a fucking like M16 or whatever. Yeah. That's exactly the kind of thing that like we need to be like shows that the hypocrisy that, like, really, when a lot of the Second Amendment people, when they say, like, what's it called, that everybody should have guns, it, like, is almost like an unspoken fact to them that they mean white people, which, like, is like, that's fucked up. Especially because, like, what's it called? White people, I think, are the ones who have, like, who need guns the least. A cross Bowie knife, a David Bowie knife. Okay, Phoebe. College humor does surprise in having good politics from time to time, yeah. Oh, no. Okay. Phoebe's trying to find a way to lie on me that's comfortable for her, but every single way that she does it involves stepping on the keyboard. So, that ruled. I'll take more videos like that, please. All right, let's do another one.
You're probably thinking right now, hey, that title is stupid.
Hey, it's Bad Empanada, friend of the show.
Argentina did not win the Falklands War, and you are very, very wrong. Here's why. The Falklands/Las Malvinas dispute goes back to the 19th century, where Argentina said that the islands were theirs because they inherited them from Spain, while Britain said they were theirs because they just always were. And then Britain sent settlers over at a time when Argentina was weak and without the military power to stop them. For like 130 years, Argentina complained about it but couldn't really do much else. Then, after the UN brought up the topic in the 60s, there were some negotiations that may have eventually resulted in some sort of compromise. But then, in 1982, Argentina had been ruled by a dictatorship of military generals for the last 6 years. The dictator at the time, Leopoldo Galtieri, he was all like, hey, we're really unpopular.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, this is how Argentina won the Falklands War, and it is by Bad Empanada, who is a pretty good YouTuber, and if you like Step Back, you'll like Bad Empanada.
And we might have to give up power unless we do something really drastic. So let's take back Las Malvinas. So they attack them, and because the one thing that everyone in Argentina agrees on,
did you do a stream with them once? I have not done a stream with Bad Empanada.
Is that the islands are Argentine.
I've not done a stream with Bad Empanada, but I've just an admirer of his work.
Everyone just immediately forgot that the dictatorship had murdered tens of thousands of people, their dystopian social control, the complete lack of democracy, and the horrible economic crisis. But the dictatorship never expected that the UK would actually defend the islands, and that was a fair enough assumption, because the British government back then didn't really care that much about some islands down way south, nowhere near them, which at the time weren't really known to have any natural resources, certainly not enough to go to war over. Or so it seemed. Margaret Thatcher, meanwhile, was gleefully ruining the lives of pretty much everyone in Britain who wasn't rich, while the Argentine dictatorship
Yeah, the fact that he criticizes China and isn't like a straight-up tanky is good.
But more direct methods of murder, Thatcher was a fan of the slower and less obvious way. She denied people their basic needs and gleefully laughed as they withered away into nothingness. So as you might expect, she was not very popular at the time. So when Argentina invaded, she was like, God yes, war was literally the only thing that could...
Oh man, so you can tell that that Bad Empanada discovered the wiggle position tool in After Effects in this video. He's using it a lot.
Possibly save me. So she tells everyone, now we're gonna attack and totally get the islands back. Hell yeah, Falkland Islands, British Empire, baby, woo! And all the Brits, fresh from a hard day of not brushing their teeth, were like, wait, what's the Falklands? Oh, they're ours? Ah, yeah, we want them, we need them. British Empire, defend our islands. 100% ours. We might be out of a job and incredibly poor thanks to her, and she might have made it abundantly clear that she utterly despises us. But you know what? For the Empire, for Queen and country, we gotta take back those islands on the other side of the world.
Yeah, the fact that like Margaret Thatcher was able to make like the shitty white supremacists in the UK at the time like so horny to go to war with Argentina over some fucking island that no one cares about is like just like such a fucking thing.
Rule Britannia in it. We loves you, Iron Lady. The poor Brits just could not help themselves. Thatcher struck the British Empire circuit in their brain, and that was enough. So Argentina's military generals are all like, oh crap, so we only know how to kill our own countrymen. That's pretty much all that we've ever done. We're really good at overthrowing our own governments, but how do we actually
Reagan was
fight,
against
like,
the Falklands War.
a
Yeah, he tried to
foreign
talk
military?
Thatcher out of
We didn't
it.
expect this. What the hell do we do? So the dictatorship decided to send in a whole bunch of conscripts so that they could protect the volunteer soldiers who had helped them out over the last 6 years by torturing and murdering people. Genius. Then there was a war in which about 1,000 people total died. The British Empire won militarily, and the Falklands/Malvinas Islanders now hate Argentina more than ever, and there's no way that the UK will ever negotiate on the issue ever again.
Purchase
The
of the
Argentine
shit
people were
source, yeah.
pissed as hell. Suddenly they remembered all the bad stuff that
Yeah,
they
you appeal to like white nationalism to the British, and they'll fucking lap it up in the right context.
Ship had done, and they wanted them out as soon as possible. And so, after its last-ditch effort had failed, the dictatorship finally fell, and Argentina returned to democracy. But the Brits, well, they all sang "God Save the Queen" and drank tea.
Wasn't
and
that
didn't
long
brush
ago?
their
No, this
teeth
happened in
and,
the 80s.
You know, what else did Brits do? Oh, they also literally just like soak their dishes in a sink full of soapy water and then don't actually wash them properly. And that's it. That's another British thing. But anyway, they also completely forgot that they hated Margaret Thatcher. They forgot that she was making them poor and that she was committing mass social murder, and so they voted for her again. And then, would you believe it, 4 years after that, they voted for her again. Oh, those poor, poor British sods. And that, my friends, is how, despite what happened militarily, Argentina actually won the Falklands War, and the UK most certainly lost it. The war brought down a dictatorship in Argentina, but in Britain, it perpetuated a witch-tatorship. Okay, video done. Bye.
I guess. I'm not sure if I buy his rationale, but I'll take it. The 80s was technically the dinosaur era. Hey, I was born in the 80s. I don't recall there be. I don't know. I don't have any memories of the 80s. I was born in 1988, so, and the end of 1988, so.
I guess I'm going to do something kind of uncharacteristic and pop off a hot take without thinking about it for like 6 months. So I've been seeing a lot of people on...
So this is the Lindsay Ellis video. She put out like a really quick... Gosh, not her. What's wrong with Lindsay Ellis? She's fine. She's good. This is on the... what's it called? The J.K. Rowling transphobia epic that has been going on
Twitter, a lot of which are in my mentions, discussing death of the author and asking how we should apply this to our newly out and proud, incredibly transphobic J.K. Rowling. The warning signs were there. You kind of began like a few months ago when people were noticing that she was liking some really hardcore right-wing TERFy tweets. TERF meaning trans-exclusionary radical feminist. Like, I'm not wild about the term for accuracy reasons, but just so we're clear, it is not a slur. So anyway, she was liking some TERFy stuff and then she started retweeting it. What's the step beyond showing your slip? It's like her dress got caught in her underwear, like with the most hilarious oops of a tweet that has ever maybe happened with someone with more than 1 million followers. And then she just doubled down from there. And so, like, just within the last 24 hours, we have her comparing providing gender services to young people with gay conversion therapy, linking to fringe weirdos and Medium posts like it's like some authority. And as is the case with so many transphobes, she is arguing against a position that nobody actually has. No one is saying chromosomes are not real, Joanne. Now, if we wanted to get into that is its a whole other thing, but suffice to say that biological sex is, in fact, much more complicated than the simple X and Y chromosome. Trans YouTuber Riley Dennis did a video on the subject a few years ago, so I'll go ahead and link to that, and I'll let her speak to that.
That is a good video. I'm gonna like, what's it called? I'm just gonna put that on my list because I'm gonna put that on my list of things to cover maybe next Friday because
a few months ago,
it's a good video and it'd be good to talk about sex.
That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about death of the author. So death of the author, when the author a very successful and wealthy author, outs themselves as a bigot. Now, it is entirely possible that you do not care and you genuinely do believe in separating art from the artist. And if that is the case, you fly free, little bird. This video is not for you. Stop watching now, go enjoy Fantastic Beasts 5 or whatever. But here's the problem with even applying Death of the Author to this discussion, is basically you were trying
This
to
shows
find
Lindsay
an
also a lot of,
academic
like,
solution
how she's, like,
for an emotional and ethical.
Like, it shows how good of a writer she is. Like, this is her, like, off the cuff, but, like, she's able to, like, put together ideas pretty cogently for just, like, she mentions in this video she's speaking without a script, and it's like, that's pretty good, like, off the cuff speaking. And yeah, she's good at what she does.
Ethical problem. As I said on my video on the subject, I personally believe that you can't really practice Death of the Author in its purest pure form. If for no other reason than if you are in any kind of like discourse setting, be it academic or Twitter, other people aren't going to really allow it. They will bring the author into it, and that is going to introduce subconscious biases, which is of course going to affect your reading of the text, no matter how hard you try to be unbiased or whatever. So you can try to practice Death of the Author, but as long as you're engaged in a community, other people are probably going to bring the author in whether you want them to or not. So I think that part of the reason why there are a lot of really confused emotions about J.K. Rowling going hard turf is because so many people have an attachment to Harry Potter. It was a part of their childhood, it was a part of their adolescence. It is deeply, deeply important to some people. Maybe like 10 or 20 years ago I would have been like smug about this, but I feel for the Harry Potter fans of the world. Harry Potter, like, I didn't hate it, but like Harry Potter was never my thing. Obviously I never talk about it on this channel. You know, like, I read the books, I even gave it a shout out by book, which I'm kind of regretting now. Oops. I just needed a book that came out in 2007. But Harry Potter was blowing up around the same times that Lord of the Rings was having its resurgence in popularity, and the relationship of the author to that text is a completely different discussion, and one we are not going to have here. Tolkien has been dead for 50 years. He's not on Twitter. But J.K. Rowling...
She is tiring, and her ideas are mainly super subjective. What are you talking... She's a critic. Critics are, like... Criticism is subjective by its, like, very nature. I'm not sure what you're getting at.
...is not only alive, she's also relatively young, and has tremendous power and influence, and a lot of...
This is an objective review of a movie. The movie is 126 minutes and 15 seconds long. The movie contains this many things. There are this many actors.
Followers, and a lot of money, and a lot of control of her intellectual property. And I've seen a lot of takes, and I don't really want to address them all, but basically you can try to be rational about the whole thing.
How would you even do an objective movie review?
Don't support her financially, but the reality is it's a lot more complicated than that. So while on some level there is a sort of broader political discussion on how she wields her influence, really when people want to talk about Death of the Author in this instance, they want to reconcile their personal feelings about Harry Potter with the author. Like, how do I reconcile the fact that the author of this series is using her power to do such incredible harm, all while genuinely believing that she is doing the right thing, with the fact that this series was so formative for so many people? How do you reconcile this? The answer to that...
She is not objectively reviewing, but preaching morality. Straw man much? Objectively reviewing. Like, okay, I don't even know what objective... This is not even a video about a review of a thing. This is her talking about the transphobic shit that J.K. Rowling said. Like, I don't know... Like, how would you even... How do I even reply to such a thing? I don't get it.
That is... I don't know. But I have kind of touched on this subject before a long time ago, and I think you can find it on my other channel. I did a video that kind of touched on a similar topic about Orson Scott Card, who is the author of Ender's Game. And it wasn't my, like, Harry Potter or anything, because
My Argo's a straw man? What's the straw man? You made the argument that you didn't like her because her stuff was subjective. And like the antonym of subjective is objective. So it sounds like you wanted her reviews to be more objective. What did J.K. Rowling say? She came out as basically like being transphobe. She's like gotten involved in like she's been like, it's been pretty well documented that she's been like following and liking tweets and stuff like that. But then I think the most recent thing is she quadrupled down at this point and made a whole thing converting like what's it called? Called like hormone gender confirmation therapy to gay conversion therapy and stuff like that. And this was like, oh god, this is so bad. Is that guy who keeps picking up Patricia Taxon in the chat right now? I don't know. We all hate her over here.
I was older when I read it, but it was extremely, formative for me, especially as a professional author. In particular, the sequel to Ender's Game, Speaker for the Dead, was extremely influential, and if you're familiar with it, you'll be like, I can see that. Like, even the title of the Axiom Zen sequel, which is called Truth of the Divine, is kind of it takes some inspiration from Speaker for the Dead. So I remember a long time ago people would talk about Orson Scott Card on Twitter, and at first I kind of was inclined to disbelieve them, mostly because I couldn't.
Well, his nap is over now.
The fact
he's had his apple juice, and he's ready to destroy liberals with facts and logic on the internet.
The importance of understanding someone or something that is very different from you with this incredible homophobic bigot. And it's not that this guy just has some bad Twitter opinions. He openly advocates against gay and trans people, and he uses his not inconsiderable wealth to do so.
She's talking about Orson Scott Card, and it's like, yeah, this is true.
And unlike Joanne, he, for the most part, has the good sense to keep his bullshit off
the
Twitter.
person talking about objective reviews was
he
in
is still
the
mostly
Twitch
on
chat.
his bullshit, and was on Ben Shapiro's channel as recently as 2 months ago. Orson Scott Card is still alive.
Gosh, I feel bad for. I'm glad that I've never actually paid money for an Orson Scott Card book, because, like, goddamn.
And there is a difference between a dead author that maybe has a checkered past and a living one who is using their not inconsiderable wealth and power to advocate against marginalized groups. And this is one of the most insidious aspects of J.K. Rowling doing what she's doing. She knows that because of her wealth and influence, she's going to be believed more than, you know, the lived experience of trans people and decades of medical research. And I know there are a lot of people who are perfectly willing to compartmentalize, and again, I separate art from the artist constantly. And you know what, that's fine. You know what, you do you. Again, this discussion is not for you. This is for the people who are trying to figure out how to reconcile having Harry Potter in their past and in their lives with the way she is wielding her power. And sort of the way that Orson Scott Card's open bigotry has influenced the way that I read the Ender series. I think people kind of know that knowing this about the author is going to affect how they read and engage with the Harry Potter series. And if it was formative for them, if it was a big part of their childhood or adolescence, or even if it is still a big part of your life, that is going to influence the way you remember it or the way you experience it. And while you can absolutely control the way you read or engage with a text, you cannot control the way an author uses their money and influence. Even case in point, right now I am using my,
Of course, Orson Scott Card was on the Ben Shapiro show. Of course, yeah.
Relative extreme micro influence to advocate against what J.K. Rowling is advocating for. And if you disagree with me, bye, Felicia. See, normally I work off a script, so this is very unnatural for me. As you can see, I like my ring light.
Thank you, Grackle Tooth.
Degree over there. See, I'm a professional. I know for a lot of people there would be no forgiveness for them, and
I have my degree now, and I'm wondering if I should be putting it up or not.
I can understand that. I think on some
Would you
level-
guys think I was smarter if I put my my master's degree in history on my wall where you could see it during the streams or during my videos or whatever?
I would have to agree. But as it stands right now, all signs point to this is where her train is going, that she's not going to change.
And then I actually, my master's degree in American Studies, I never picked up from the university. I'd actually have to like wait till the university reopens and go and get it, and I can put them beside each other or something.
What is probably going to happen is she and her social circle is going to become more and more insular, and she's going to distance herself from people that she used to work with, like the entire cast of the Harry Potter movies. And she's going to get love bombed by not only people who agree with her, but people who probably have much more far-right beliefs about trans people than even Rowling
nice to show off the
does. I have
credentials,
seen
yeah.
people argue that once a text is in the world, regardless of how much the author tries to
Use a green screen to make the
reading
degree
of
your
it,
entire
once
background.
it's out there,
Now there's a plan.
the text no longer belongs to them. And on a certain level, I do agree with that. However, there are few creators that are as deeply entrenched in the world they created as J.K. Rowling.
How long
like,
before JK's
Ezzy,
on the
for
bench
instance,
Bureau
let's
show?
say
Well,
that
you've now
George
just cursed that
Lucas
into
goes off the
existence.
deep end and like chains himself to a Confederate statue that is slated for removal. He's not really got anything to do with Star Wars anymore, but J.K. Rowling is Harry Potter.
U of T. No, actually, I went to Western.
She has made sure of that. And this is sort of a unique franchise in that you can't really consume and advocate for it without
My bachelor's is
indirectly
from
doing the
Bishop's, which
same
is like
for
this small
the
university
author.
in Quebec.
And she
but
knows this,
both my
which
master's
is
degrees are
why
from Western.
she's kind of decided that this is the hill she's going to die on. She has a lot of power and influence, especially in the UK, where shameless turfery is a lot more normalized than it is here in the US. It's like the one thing that we are slightly less shitty about. Winning? So here's the thing. If you, like, I don't know, never watch another Harry Potter movie again, or
She's in
sell your
Lexville.
books
Yeah,
to
it
a
is.
bookstore or something,
Yep.
that isn't
Went
really
there for
going
3
to
years.
change
It's a
anything.
good place.
Like, the number of consumers who are going to change their habits because of this thing is vanishingly small. But whenever you take the concept of death of the author and basically
Stockholm University,
proclaim
that
that the
sounds like a good
text
place.
belongs to the reader now, this
I like
is a
Stockholm.
way
I
to
wish I could go there.
reconcile your own personal
Seems like a nice
emotional
place.
attachment to this text, and that's fine. However, you can't really cry death of the author and keep consuming Harry Potter stuff without supporting her wealth and influence. And honestly, what she is doing does scare me. You know, like such to the point that I would, you know, make a YouTube video in my pajamas reacting to the discussion of death of the author as it pertains to J.K. Rowling. I think we're at an important crossroads.
You have to do classes online. Yeah, I'm kind of like in that. I'm glad that I got out of university when I did, because like it would be, yeah.
Crossroads where trans visibility is
The Ender's Game movie was coming out. A lot of people were saying that we have to boycott his work. Consequently, I deliberately bought and listened to the audiobook because I felt really self-righteous about separating art from the artist. That was a really angry Jack moment for me. Well, it's also a past Jack moment for me, so you've obviously learned from it.
concerned. And we could either go forward or we could see the loss of what gains we have made.
Piracy is
and
good,
I
cool
don't
and
want
good.
to think about what going backward might look like. And like turfery is a spectrum. There are a lot of gender critical
Do what you want, 'cause a pirate is free. You are a pirate.
people, that's what they call themselves.
Guessing that's
that,
like a archaeological
they
meme
know
now.
they are transphobic. They have like terrible, terminologies that they use. They actively try to do harm for people. They know what they're doing.
LOL, LimeWire,
But
yeah.
Rowling is in this camp where I don't think she believes she's transphobic. I think she genuinely believes that she's
2013 was a
doing
very
the
different
right
world
thing,
indeed.
which is
That was the year
why
I
I
met
don't
Kelly.
think she's going to change. So again, with this discussion, we are dealing with two separate issues. How do you personally reconcile your relationship to this text, and how do we as consumers interact with J.K. Rowling's intellectual property? Obviously, if Harry Potter never meant anything to you, you keep doing you, boo. Advocate against her positions. You can try to reason with her on Twitter. good luck. But if you cry death of the author and decide to ignore the author, yet you continue to consume her product, that is a form of empowerment. Rowling only has this massive platform because of her influence, which comes from her creative output. And the only way her influence is reduced is if businesses decide that she's too toxic to be associated with. Now, I think in a weird way, the case of J.K. Rowling, suddenly making this heel turn is a pretty extreme case, because there are very, very few authors in this world with the kind of influence that she has. So if Harry Potter means so much to you that you genuinely can't let it go, and...
Yeah, one of the things that I thought about, because a couple of the things that came out of the J.K. Rowling thing was all of the Harry Potter fan sites distancing themselves from J.K. Rowling. And one of the things that came to mind is and this happened with Game of Thrones too, with all the people who named their kids Khaleesi and got Game of Thrones tattoos only to have season 8 happen. All I can think is can you imagine if you are one of my wife's friends had a Harry Potter theme wedding, and the people who have somewhere in the world there is a trans person who felt empowered by the Harry Potter books and has a Harry Potter tattoo, and I can imagine all that attaching yourself to those kinds of things in such a permanent and big way. Just oh man, so many people's identities are so wrapped up in Harry Potter that this is tough.
And you desire to compartmentalize the author.
There are only 7 seasons
text,
of Game of Thrones, yeah.
Then go ahead. But don't try to morally justify it if you understand that Joanne's position and influence comes from the fact that so many people consume her text. So normally I might advocate for a sort of wishy-washy, it's your own personal relationship to the text
I don't even know
thing.
who Mother's Basement
But
is.
in this case, I don't think that Death of the Author can apply. The fact that she is so deeply entwined in the world she created is why she has so much power. So from an academic standpoint, it's fine. That's why Death of the Author...
I always mention also that on Wednesday morning, my mom gave me a call and said that I looked tired on the Tuesday stream. I thought that was amusing.
...exists. It's supposed to be this, emotionless, manly way of engaging with text. But from an ethical standpoint, if you really don't want
J.K. Rowling
to
should be able to
support the
platform.
author, you might just need to let Harry Potter go. And I feel like what I'm seeing
I feel
is
like
a
if
lot of people...
what's it called? She has her ideas. I'm not what's it called? I would not in my mind I would just if I had the power to amplify her voice in any way, I would not take it. Whether or not she should be kicked off Twitter or something is that's a bigger question. I don't know if I have a good answer for that. But I definitely think that by her having her platform, she is definitely hurting people, which means that we probably should do something about it.
Who are not ready to do that. Again, to draw the point of comparison with me and Orson Scott Card, I can accept that Orson Scott Card was very formative and influential.
How many trans people fantasize about transition with
but I'm past the point where I'm willing to...
Was this video shared in the Discord? I can't find it. No, this was one I decided I came across this week and I wanted to show.
in good conscience to do the same. So
I
know that this kind of comes off like I'm saying boycott Harry Potter because the author has some bad Twitter opinions. But I think that if this is an issue that you really care about, you kind of have to. And to be clear, I don't want to insinuate that it's either or. Either the author has a spotless past and is completely unproblematic and therefore it's okay to consume their work, or cancel J.K. Rowling. That is not what I'm saying, because again, J.K. Rowling is a pretty extreme case because she's so famous. And I don't think I can overstate the amount of harm she is doing right now by tweeting this dangerous crap to her 14 million followers. She is normalizing misinformation and making it genuinely dangerous for trans people to exist. And
well, there's the thing, is she was actually just talking about this, Hazy. I honestly, I don't, it's something that I definitely would struggle with. It's definitely a hard answer thing, because, yeah, you definitely, I'm an anti-authoritarian anarchist. I don't really think that the state should be able to step in and tell anybody what to do. In a lot of cases. I also know that J.K. Rowling is going to encourage ideas that will create legitimate danger for trans people by having the platform she has. That is, and I feel like that should take a priority. Although, like, yeah, the slippery slope, like there's a reason this should be like a complex thing, right?
That makes me mad. I don't like it. People in the last video asking, do you really drink that much Canada Dry diet? Canada Dry? Yes, I do. So again, I think we're kind of dealing with a strange and unique case of author doing real harm who thinks she is doing good, but is the owner of a text that is arguably the most popular franchise that has happened in the last 30 years. That is what the...
All I can think about is that person complaining about people pirating. It's like, remember like a few years ago when everybody was up in arms about using ad blockers, and now no one talks about it anymore? Like, geez, chill out.
The issue is here, and that is why I felt it was important enough to even talk about. To wield my power and influence. I, an author who am not even published yet. Actually, because here's the thing. I actually, honestly, and I don't like talking about my personal feelings because I like to pretend that I don't have any. But I honestly, I kind of was waffling on whether or not I should even say something, because I have a book coming out in like 2 weeks, and as a debut author, it maybe isn't the best idea to publicly advocate.
Hey, Matt Lipton, I have a this video idea that I want to make in the far future for my second channel about how in Japan, anime, like the anime industry has lobbyists, and there actually is like an anime lobby in Japanese government. And one of the things that they lobby for a lot is to keep child pornography laws weak. And I think that says just about all you need to know about... there's another example about why capitalism is bad.
One of the most successful living authors. And I don't want it to sound like it's this moral hoity-toity thing, but it kind of just was the right thing to do, and I know it is.
Do I think I'm going to keep doing this? Yes. I just got to, I got to get into a routine, but a lot of people came out, and it seems like we had a lot of fun.
It isn't just about death of the author. It is about advocacy, and what she is doing right now is...
Pornography laws in Japan are a little bit more stringent than they are in the West, but child pornography laws are like notably lax compared to the West, which is weird.
Normalizing some really insidious stuff. So yeah, I don't really know how to end this. Obviously, I kind of put this together on the fly. She's still trending on Twitter. She's been trending all day. I don't know. Stop buying Harry Potter stuff. Donkey Kong says trans rights. Good night.
Okay. Well, that was good. I'm a big fan of that video. All right, for everybody in Twitch, we're going to go and say hello to a friend. Let's go see... Let's see, what's the Surfs up to? Are they just getting started?
Based on critical theory. They're nothing but racist trash.
And who else we got? We got Rocket.
A lot of noise on mine, so if you could...
Irene, so let's go see the Surfs, since they're the ones that need the most help. So let's go see the Surfs. Oh, they're streaming somebody else. Never mind. Okay. Who do we raid? Let's see. Let's go raid. No comment check? What's that? All right, everybody. For everybody else, I'll be back streaming on Monday. So have a good weekend. Take care of yourselves and each other. And yeah, have a good one.